Welcome to 7 Helix. I'm with Izzy Vassilakis today. Is that Vassilakis?
Vassilakis.
Vassilakis?
Yeah, you always do it right. Then you
I
doubted
second
yourself.
guess myself. Yeah, which we'll talk about today. But
It'll happen again.
so she ran you called it a natal chart,
Yeah,
right?
his natal chart.
So in astrology, and she's going to tell me a bunch of stuff about me.
Yeah, I'll be talking a lot, but it'll all be about Jimmy. All his secrets.
Which I like because I'm an Aries.
This is like such an, the most egotistical Aries thing we can do. I love it.
Me too.
No, I didn't mean to say that.
I'm excited for this.
I'm excited for this.
I'm excited for this because I'm going to, yeah.
Why are you excited for it?
Because my relationship with astrology is sort of interesting because when I was younger, I remember having this thought. I was like, it frustrates me that my astrological sign would have the reaction I'm having to astrology. You know what I mean? It was like,
100%.
Like, that's so frustrating to me.
Yeah.
It feels like I can't get out of it.
Right.
But then I got into like meditation and I started like learning more about Eastern philosophies and stuff. And I became more open to understanding it in a way. I feel like you can't try to understand it with Western ears.
So, my relationship with astrology began very young. And I think that it puts a lot of people off because mostly it's your sun sign. And people are very complicated and they're very nuanced. Sun sign is not, and it's just one part of you. And as I think that you'll see after we discuss this 23 or 24 page dossier that I prepared for you, you'll see how interconnected and intricate it all is. But I also, I really don't like to, I guess, typecast specific signs because I think that there is an evolved expression of each sign and an unevolved expression of each sign, as there is with everything. And the zodiac wheel is endlessly fascinating because it is just a series of patterns. I'm almost afraid that I will be just crazy repetitive when I go through this because a lot of things really just mirror another thing and you just kind of have to like pinpoint the pattern. So what I would eventually like to do with astrology is do natal charts because I think that predictive astrology is a little wacky. It's why I like dabbled in tarot and I just couldn't really get into it because I didn't like that kind of responsibility and I don't like the sort of relinquishing of free will. With astrology, there is an element of that. However, if you look at your natal chart, then you can sort of pinpoint the things that are giving you issues. You can pinpoint your strengths and your weaknesses, and you can see which areas of life you're going to have issues in, and then you can sort of like lean into your strengths.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
Natal chart meaning the chart of your birth.
Yeah, exactly.
So the thing I like about that is it's very similar to, I have a little bit of a scientific mind. It's similar to the idea that you might have a biological trait. You know?
Yep.
You might be born with certain traits.
Right.
It doesn't lock you into anything.
Right.
And if you try to predict what you're going to like or what you're going to be like because of your biology, you'll be very unhappy.
Right.
Probably.
Right. It's almost like I'm starting to lean more towards believing that, in reincarnation and that when your soul is ready to inhabit another human body, you choose both the time of birth and also your lineage. Do you know what I mean? Yes. So you get stamped with your genetic code and you get stamped with your star code when you are born. And that way you have basically set up your entire karmic situation with which you can evolve your soul to the next level.
I could not agree with that more.
Yeah.
I use the idea of multiple lives. Whether it's literally true or not, it's useful.
Makes more sense.
It does make more sense.
It makes sense.
Even if it's not true, it's more useful if I have a situation to be like, maybe I deserve this.
Right.
Or if this were karma, what would be the way to
Right.
handle this? And then you usually end up doing
Right.
something better.
Totally get that.
So yeah, I should say that you have told me a couple things about, because you like briefly looked at my chart the first time. Well, one of the first times we hung out.
Yeah.
Because I had said I'm a cusp, and you were kind of like, bullshit, there's no such thing. And then you asked me information, and I happened to know the time I was born.
Yeah.
And then you said that I was like the most Aries person you've ever met.
You are, though. You still are. You still are. You are an Aries sun, and you have your moon, Mercury, Venus in Aries, and they're all in. That's a lot, dude. It's a lot of fire too. It's not just a lot of one sign. It's a lot of, you have a lot of fire in your chart.
What are the fire signs?
No, not Scorpio. Leo, which is what I am, Aries, and Sagittarius.
Okay.
So yeah.
The whole fire thing was kind of the doorway for me into this, because when somebody described the fire, water, air.
Yeah.
What is that? Earth.
Yeah. The elemental aspects of it. Yeah.
Right. That rung true to me.
Right. Can you see that though within certain people? Like, can you sort of just get an energetic imprint of them, be like, this person has this element within them?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you definitely have a fire element within you. You know what I mean?
I do.
Recognize my own.
Yeah.
I do.
One of my closest friends was born exactly a couple of years and exactly a week after me. And so he's a Taurus, and he's very much like that. Like, he's very grounded.
Right.
Not in a, it's hard because if you say fire, the interpretation is usually like you take the worst possible.
Right.
You know, so like
Totally.
Grounded might sound like boring, but it's not what that means. What it means is level-headed, thinks things through, conservative, for lack of a better word.
Concerned with earthly matters.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like building a life, building a career, establishing stability and safety, and enjoying, like, using their senses. Do you know what I mean? It's not just an entirely sensual or sexual expression. It's more just like they like to use their senses, and it's more of a fine sense.
That's interesting.
Especially with a sign like Taurus, who is the quintessential earthy earth sign.
Does it make sense that we became very quick, fast friends?
I think so.
You don't know his whole chart, right? So
right.
You're only going off his sun sign.
Right.
I would assume some other ones are at least earth signs, if not Taurus, because he is, even in like romantic relationships, I would say he's very practical. He's very, I don't know.
Yeah. It's hard to put in words, but sometimes you just get like this imprint of somebody and you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So the fire thing for me at first was resistant for the same reason I was resistant to being an Aries.
Right.
Because I was like, I'm not a dick. That's what I thought. You know, I thought, but I'm not like that.
No, you're not.
And then when somebody explained to me that fire just means it's kind of change, you know, it's sort of a, correct me if I'm wrong, or give me what your interpretation is. But like, for me, fire is sort of, it's not just change. That's one thing. Sort of, I like change because it's like transformation. It's the only one of the ones that would change something to something else.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know, like it turns solid into air, you know, or like
burns shit down.
Yeah. Like that's another thing.
Yeah.
There's this really cool picture that I love that shocked me how many ways people interpret it. And it's a painting of a guy, and there's a big brown wall and a ladder on the wall, and he's on the inside and he's burning rungs of the ladder. And it bothered me. For me, that was like misusing the fire. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's and hiding from the truth.
Yes, misusing the fire is an excellent way to think about it, and I'm gonna have to think about that extensively on my own time, because I think Aries is one of the most misunderstood signs. And like, there's this whole like astrological meme situation happening on Instagram right now that I don't really feel like it's giving a lot of misinformation. Well, it is, but at the same time, it's just for fun. But, you know, you see like an Aries meme and it's just like somebody like in a rage.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's not like that, because the thing with Aries is that it is, first of all, there are the four elements, but there are also the three qualities. The three qualities are cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs. And each cardinal sign, cardinal energy is more of like a self-starter. They're always coming up with ideas and they want to like get things done and they just want to start stuff. Whereas a fixed sign, which is Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus, they tend to have things come to them. They tend to like build more of the foundation and continue the work that cardinal signs have started. Mutable signs are more of the switcheroo signs. They're the more slippery signs. And they are the ones that come at the end of the seasons. Cardinal signs come at the beginning of every season. So Aries comes in the spring, and Cancer is a cardinal sign. They usher in the summer, and then Libra. And then
That's interesting. I didn't know about the what do they call the qualities?
Yeah, they're the qualities.
What is Aries?
Aries is cardinal. So Aries energy is in and of itself like extremely fiery, and it starts the whole karmic cycle. It starts the whole zodiac cycle. So you're like the baby of the family. And because a baby doesn't particularly understand yet that there are things that you need to do in order to get what you want, you can have a reaction when you don't get what you want that is, passionate and fiery and like angry. There's a lot of anger, but there are a lot of positive expressions of Aries energy. And I think that evolved Aries soul generally is one of my favorite zodiac signs because they're super fun, they're super energetic, and willing to talk about a lot of things. And they're very non-judgmental. You know what I mean? They're non-judgmental because I think that a lot of times, like the later signs, especially signs such as like Aquarius and Capricorn, they're more towards the end of the zodiac and they have like this wisdom, but at the same time, if it's not expressed in a way that is, holds the, I guess, wisdom of, I don't know, like several hundred lifetimes behind them, it can just be very harsh. And I think Aries has this like punchy energy that can be construed as harsh, but it's more just, I have a child. She's an Aries, and it's just like such a double meaning because like I've had an actual baby and she was an actual Aries, and she's like such an Aries too. Like the baby wants something, it screams, but the baby doesn't understand any limitations. The baby doesn't get why it can't have what it wants, and therefore doesn't overthink it. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't overthink it, just like does it.
My early 20s, just or like most of my 20s.
But it's beautiful though. Like not overthinking something is a wonderful trait a lot of the time. Thinking something is cool. Underthinking is not great, but overthinking also cannot be great. But
I think I overthink my underthinking.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, because you're like, I should be putting more thought into this, and I shouldn't be like leaning into my gut instinct and my initial reaction, which generally is your true reaction.
But I can't deny it.
Deny what?
I can't deny that reaction. I'm like,
right. Oh, I see what you're saying.
The part of me that's kind of back off is thinking you don't have any evidence for that.
There's an aspect for that.
Is there? Okay. I do want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Because of what you just said. Because I dated a girl once who was in, what's the last one? Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
See, she was a Pisces. Mm-hmm. And she said once, she's like, I know I'm younger than you, mm-hmm. but you're younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're excited about all of these things.
Yeah.
I am not excited.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah. And that was the way she put it.
Yeah.
And I never knew that. I never knew that the Aries was the first sign.
Yeah.
And it kind of.
There's an innocence. There's an innocence that translates in many beautiful ways, but it also can lend just an aggressiveness or just like a rash behaviorness or, stuff like that where you don't think before you speak or act. Although I have to say that most of the Aries people that I know are some of the smartest people I've ever met, like literally just more intellectually capable. I think, no problem. I think it's because there's an active like cardinal energy to the mind where you're just like not, like Mars rules Aries and Mars just gives all this energy. It's the energy planet and it just like gives all this driving force and like potency to everything that you put your mind to. And if you have like Mars all up in your chart like you do, then of course you're going to have all the energy to, do all these things, all these like wonderful things that you're like, your beautiful little Aries mind wants to do, because it doesn't know that, along the line, there are limitations, but because you don't really understand the limitations yet, you're taken care of. People take care of you.
Yeah.
Because you're innocent in a way,
I resist that too.
You don't have to.
I don't know why I do it.
Because you have a higher mind and you think that it isn't a good trait, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I believe in your birthright. And I think that the sun sign is really indicative of your birthright.
The sun sign was another one that rung very true to me when someone described it to me, or when I learned a little bit about it. I don't want to jump ahead, but I want to ask a question because I think it's topical to what you were just saying. But you mentioned to me something about being near the end of Aries.
Yeah, I actually started the report with that because it's one of the it kind of sets the tone for the whole chart, and I also knew that it would be something
when
you
you
wanted to talk
told me
about.
that, I was like, oh my oh my goodness.
Yeah, because I did know one of the very first times we spoke, actually, because you were talking about you were on the cusp, of between Aries and Taurus, but I was like, you know what, down to the minute, astrology is a wheel, and if you are within one sign, you're just not in the other sign. Do you know what I mean? There are degrees. Each sign, there's 12 signs, and if a circle has however many degrees, this is 360. 360. Each sign gets 30 degrees. And you are positioned at the 29th degree of Aries, meaning you are 1 degree away from Taurus. And if that sort of correlates with what we just spoke about being, as if you were placed within, your natal chart was given to you in order so that you can evolve your soul to the next evolution, then that means that you have done a lot of the Aries work that you were supposed to do for your soul, and you're just kind of chilling. You can see the Taurus stuff. You're ready for it. You want that Taurus stuff. You've done your Aries stuff, but you're not there yet. And it's called an anaretic degree, which translates to evil or malefic. Right? Because in ancient astrology is crazy. The ancient stuff is insane because it sounds so dramatic. It sounds just if you have this in your chart, you will just have this doomed life. And I'm like, no, that's not really what it's about. It's about here, this is what they gave you. The universe made you with love. It made you this way for a reason. And it wants you to figure it out and make the best of it, for lack of a better term. So as I will get into later, it gave you this just I guess just desire to move forward, just a very an impatient desire to go forward. Yeah, and combine that with all the areas that you have in your chart, which is already a very impatient situation. It's got to be very frustrating. But as I will also get into later, it also gave you all these tools to temper you down, all these tools to help move you forward. So
interesting.
Yeah, it gets a bad reputation, and this is an interesting way that I saw described. It's a factor in one's chart that kills form. You know what I mean? It kills form. So it sort of okay, so I'm just going to read right now because I am a writer first and foremost, and it's the only way that I can.
You do it. I'm at some point going to ask you what this stuff
Totally.
means, but I'm going to wait and see if you describe it to me.
Right. So let me just read. So as you can see, the 29th degree has kind of a bad reputation. The most interesting way I've seen it described it as a factor that kills form, enabling us to make changes in our lives. So it's giving you that impetus it's giving you that just yearning, I guess, just putting that seed of yearning within you so that it pushes your soul to evolve. If that yearning wasn't there, then maybe you would stagnate. You know what I mean? Maybe you wouldn't do what the universe wants you to do, which this is a whole other situation. I often become very rebellious towards what the universe wants me to do because there's an element of negating my own free will, but it's not really like that. I also recently discovered about myself that I don't like people telling me what to do so much that I get mad at myself for telling myself what to do, even if it's in with my better interest. So I feel you. You know what I mean? I think that's a really, really, really hardcore fire sign trait. I don't even clap at concerts when they tell me to.
Really?
I get mad about it.
I'm not that bad.
No, I get mad about it.
You get mad because you're supposed to?
I'm how do you know the best way that I'm enjoying this?
One of the questions I ask a lot of people, just regularly, is do you ever have that moment at a red light where it's like, there's nobody here, I can see in all directions, and it's like, why is this light telling me I can't go?
Right.
There's no reason I can't go.
Right. There's a rule thing happening.
And I think I'm very much like that. That's a good metaphor.
Right.
Why am I not allowed to go? You know,
because the logic within you is saying there's no danger here.
Yes.
You know, the rule is in place for a reason. You understand that, but doesn't matter because there's nobody here.
Yes.
You know?
And it feels the same internally. It's like, I recognize there's a reason, there's a rule. However, I don't see how it applies to my particular situation.
I think that you should just roll with that. Honestly, like, to, you know, with a limit, like, cap it. I don't want to like send you to jail with my astrological advice, but
no, I'm not going to start like blowing through red lights.
You're just going to stop at a red light, sort of look around very carefully.
Yeah.
Like inch forward.
And then go.
Totally. Absolutely. I co-sign that. Do it. So
you're saying that internally, right? Like not,
no,
or are you telling me to actually go through red lights?
I can't answer that.
You can't answer that.
Because now I feel like you're telling me what to do.
Oh, that's so funny.
All right. So your sun. Okay, so they're the three, I think, most important and also just like more intensely evident, like to the general, you know, like observer of humanity, elements to a natal chart is the sun sign, the rising sign, and the moon sign. So your sun sign represents like the core of your being. It represents like who you are like on the inside, like, but also who you are meant to be, like the fullest expression of what the gifts that you were given are.
Interesting.
So that's one of the reasons why I don't like when people hate on their signs, because I'm like, this could go so well for you if you just sort of let go of what you think you need to do and what you think you should be. And your rising sign is the sign that like flashed down upon you the moment you were born. The moment that you entered this earthly plane, the sign that was right above you is your rising sign.
What's mine?
Sagittarius. Which is also mine. I love a Sagittarius. Love it.
I know nothing about Sagittarius.
Sagittarius is my favorite sign. Love it. I actually, when I get into your rising sign, I talk a lot about Sagittarius because it's one of my favorite signs for so many reasons. And so that's like your first house, and your rising sign takes up your first house. So in addition to all the signs that go around the wheel, the zodiac is it's just divided into 12 houses. And each house is associated with a sign in an area of life. So this is where astrology can get really repetitive, but also this is where you can see all the patterns. And if you learn like one set of things, if you learn all the elements or all the qualities of each sign, then you can basically understand all the qualities of each house. So the first house is ruled by Aries because it's the first sign. And it represents the forming of your identity, the forming of self. You're born, and now you have to like figure out who you are, right? And so that's why your rising sign is very important, because that was such a heavy influence upon you the minute you were born. And it colors how you present yourself to the world. I've seen it described as the sunglasses the cosmos gives you when you're born, so that like it just sort of, you like look around and you're like, all right, this is, I got a Sagittarius pair of sunglasses on. You know what I mean? I'm into like philosophy.
Okay.
And I'm into fun. And I'm half horse.
It is like the clothes you wear. Like the clothes you choose, your style.
Yes, and that's actually a very important way of putting it, because it's also the persona that you choose.
Right.
So in a lot of ways, it's a mask, but it's also not, because it's also a big part of you, but it's more of a mask than your sun sign.
Masks aren't inherently bad things either.
They're not.
I mean, you wouldn't want...
They're not.
I've talked about masks as necessary. You know, just like children learn to put on masks. They have to. Like, you're learning how to go out to eat and not throw a fit. Right. Because your natural self wants to throw a fit. It's like, why am I sitting here?
Says the Aries. Masks. You're right. I just really love truth, and I really love getting to the bottom of things.
I'm with you. Trust me. That's intimacy to me. Yeah. Intimacy is I'm taking off my clothes. Right. I'm taking off my mask. Yeah. I'm showing you more real of myself. It's addicting, and I really prefer it because I don't like small talk. Right. You know, it seems
Boring.
Yeah.
Shallow.
But at the same time, I've realized recently, maybe because I'm getting older,
Hmm.
my energy is limited.
Yeah.
And there's certain people I just don't care. And it's nothing against them. It's just like, I don't have space for all of this. So you get small talk. And I feel a little guilty about it sometimes, but because I know what it means to me, but usually it's just, this is the appropriate way I should be talking to this person.
Hmm. I think that like with certain, like coworkers and acquaintances, that it's just totally fine. It's just something that you have to do. It's part of your mask.
Yeah.
For me, I've noticed it a lot in the past couple of years because I've become more sensitive to my environment. Like there are places that I literally just can't be because the energy, like I can't go to New York City anymore. I just can't. It's like evil.
Because you lived there?
I lived there, but I loved it when I lived there. I had so much fun. But now when I go back, I'm like, this is a dark, dark place. Everybody here,
Interesting.
it's such a dark place. But there's also such moments of beauty there. But it's very overwhelming to me.
Do you feel as though that would be true for any city you had happened to live in that point?
You mean like would I have liked any other city?
Well, let's say if you happen to like San Francisco,
Yeah.
and then you left, do you feel like now you'd go back and, not that San Francisco's a bad place, but maybe you would see the darker side of it because I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I don't really think it's totally that flavor. It's more that it's such an urban environment. There isn't a lot of chill energy. Everybody's like rat racing it. Oh, everyone partying. Everyone's just like trying to get laid in the worst ways, and I just like feed off of everybody's energy, and I don't really particularly know how to shield myself against it at this point.
You have to be very, very rich.
Yeah.
But you have to be very, very rich and have like a Park
Yeah.
Avenue apartment.
Yeah.
That you don't have to leave because you pay someone to bring you your food. Like
that sounds quite lovely.
then you can
actually.
enjoy the beauty of the city from far away.
You could have like mimosas on your rooftop garden.
But yeah,
I'd fuck with that.
Everybody else, it's a rat race.
Yeah, no, totally. But it's also, even if you are rich, you're still subject to the intensity of just staying and becoming successful. Like there was a reason why you're rich, and it's that kind of energy, and I just recoil from it. So what I was trying to say with this whole like, side monologue here is that I think also, yeah, maybe you're getting older and you don't have the kind of energy, but I also think it's more maybe you're becoming intolerant to energy that doesn't feed you.
That could very much. That could,
Do you know what I mean?
That could be.
And maybe you're just getting to the point where I think you're starting to realize that you're still working through the guilt about it, but you don't have to do those things. In order to have a career and a job, you know what I mean? Yeah, you have to do small talk with your coworkers, but you don't have to have people in your life that you don't really want there.
I struggle with that.
Yeah, I do too.
Especially with people who I have had a connection with.
Right, but you've kind of grown past it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me because I feel guilty.
Do you feel, is it more, for me, it's not necessarily guilt, it's more I have a hard time letting go of things. So, but I don't really experience the guilt.
Actually, this is perfect timing. So I had a big piece of chocolate the other night, and I was really like in a state. I was
tore up.
I was, and I was talking to someone through that, and I was like, sometimes I wonder if the way I'm thinking in that state is how I'm thinking all of the time, but I don't know it. And I was recognizing how much I have a thought. How did I put it when I was in that state? It was like I say something, and then my brain analyzes every possible way that I can think of that could be interpreted. And let's say there's like 999,000 of them that are fine, and there's one that could be interpreted badly, in a way that they take it to mean something that would hurt.
Right.
I hyper focus on that one.
Right. I do the same thing.
And then I feel really badly, and I feel like I need to explain that I didn't mean that.
And it just makes the situation worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it feels like the same type of thing. It's like I actually know it before I say it.
Yeah.
That's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the Aries thing. It's like I know that's what's going to happen. Yeah. I know part of me thinks you don't have to say that. But another part of me is like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to say this. And then I say it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find a way to be okay with
with how you feel after that. Well, I think that's a little bit of kind of maybe like standard like social anxiety too, where, it's you care about other people and you don't want to cause any bad feelings in this world. But also B, like you also care about how you're perceived, and you don't want to be like looked at as this like idiot who just goes around saying stupid shit. Or at least this is how I feel a lot of the time.
I'm more afraid. It's hard to say true things
Mm,
in ways that don't hurt feelings.
I know.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost implied. Like
Yeah.
if you say something truthful, you almost invariably hurt someone at least a little bit. The
Yeah.
truth very rarely feels good.
You know what my daughter said one time?
What?
I died laughing because she was mad at me for something. Oh no, I was mad at her for I don't know. She like threw me under the bus like one way or another. She does it all the time. She gets great joy from it. And I was like, Violet, rude. And she said, it wasn't rude, mommy. It was the truth. Truth never hurts. And I like just started laughing so hard. Truth has a tendency to hurt quite a bit.
Sure does. Scout, would you get down, please? Thank you.
Scout's cute though.
You have a bed over there. Why don't you go?
I'm
use
okay
it?
with Scout chilling. So
Yeah. Yes.
So you just kind of have to like at some point.
It's so weird because I'm also like obsessed with truth.
Yeah.
But at the same time, hyper aware of the fact that I'm an idealist, and the truth never matches to the like. It always punches the ideal. It's always like, guess what? It's not that easy.
Yeah, that's a thing too. And you have a lot of Neptune action in your chart.
What is that?
All right.
I'm sorry. I keep interrupting.
No,
you.
that's okay. It's more like I really want to hit all the really cool parts.
Yeah, do it.
All right. So let me just say a couple more things about this 29th anaretic degree sun sign. I think that because it's you can have it in like any planet, like whatever's happening, but it's in your sun sign, which reflects your identity and the core person and who you were supposed to be in this world, like in this lifetime.
So this 29th, this means this is the final degree of Aries.
Yes.
The next degree is the beginning of Taurus.
Yes, is Taurus.
So that's what
Yeah.
I am. That's me.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And so there's that whole thing about like, feeling like you're on the outside looking in to something that you want and that you respect more at this point because you're ready for it. But at the same time, I think it's a great lesson in accepting yourself. And it's almost like you repress a lot of the Aries that is in your chart because you're through with it. And because of that, there's a lot of maybe just repression that's happening that doesn't need to be there because you're still you can't repress all the Aries because there's so much of it. You know what I mean? Like that's just, I do not want you to do that ever. That's bad. No bueno.
I think I tried. It didn't work.
Yeah. And
I'm also unhappy.
Right. You know what I mean? Just kind of like, it's simple to say, just let yourself be who you are, finally, like once you figure out who you are, like, then it's a lot easier to do that. But at the same time, you can do it like little by little, but it's just like the impatience and the repression of your true nature, like and always trying to mold it into something that you find more ideal. And I think maybe in that way, it sort of shapes the idealism that you have.
Yeah.
Because you're like, this isn't what I want. This is what I am. It's not what I want. This is what I want. So it becomes a psychological ideal,
Yes.
And therefore, there's like a seed that gets planted and all that jazz. And think about it this way: you have so much Aries in your chart that, like, being a Taurus, you would be so bored. You really would. It's like super chill. Did you know that Kiki is a Taurus, but also she has Aries rising?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and she has other fire placements too.
She and I are very similar in some ways. Sometimes she says something or describes something, and I'm just like, yeah, that's normal.
Yeah.
And
Right. You guys just get each other.
Yeah.
You're homies.
We are.
Yeah.
Pretty easily.
Yeah. She's my homie too. She's been my homie first. She's my sister. All right. So you have that Aries situation happening, and then your moon, Mercury, and your Venus are in Aries. So your moon is very important because it represents your emotional reactions. Like your sun is how you act. It's like yang energy. The moon is yin energy. It's how you receive information.
Masculine, feminine. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I had someone do my chart once, and he didn't want to use masculine, feminine energy. And at that point I was like, whatever, it's fine. Use yang and yin energy. But it makes more sense to just use.
To me too, it's more intuitive.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people struggle because they hear the words and they think you're saying something about all men or all women.
Right.
but
Right. No.
I don't interpret it that
Okay.
way.
All right.
Yeah.
That stuff like that frustrates me because I just feel like it clouds the real conversation, you know?
Is it like active and passive?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
the way you receive things versus the way you act upon things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so your moon like and it also like regulates, you know, your emotional responses to things, which obviously correlates to how you receive like outside stimulus. But the moon has also been called your reigning need. It's what it also encapsulates how you comfort yourself. And so if your moon is unhappy, then no matter what you do, the rest of you is going to be unhappy too, because you know, the moon just has what you need. It knows what you need. It intuitively knows what you need. It's like the moon is, you know, obviously really tightly correlated to, you know, all the great female deities. And so there's that nurturing energy, that comfort energy, that just like getting behind, you know, getting into your subconscious and figure out what's really going on energy. Whereas the sun is like, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to
It's like
burn.
mother versus father.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
the archetypal mother is
Yeah,
somebody who
God,
knows
I love
exactly,
archetypes. Love them
right?
so much.
The archetypal good mother
Yeah,
is the one who knows
yeah,
what you need,
yeah,
is nurturing, gives you what you need. The archetypal
yeah,
father is more like shows just
yeah.
does stuff.
No,
You know,
no, totally. It was like acts versus reacts.
yeah. So
Yes,
you're
yeah.
saying my mother and father are both Aries.
Pretty much.
I don't know how receptive Aries works. Like that almost seems like a contradiction in terms to
Yeah,
me.
I can see that. Um, but still, they still have their own flavor. They still impart their own energy. You react in an Aries way, perhaps. Your emotions are Aries flavored. You know, like
Mhm.
that kind of thing. Maybe the way that you comfort yourself has
Oh,
Aries
that's
flavor.
interesting. So what you're saying, oh, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me if I'm interpreting
No,
this
go for
wrong,
it.
but what you're kind of saying is what I need in terms of how I feel is how I feel. I mean, I'm not universally saying that, but like I have strong feelings about things
Right.
sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
often.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't actually see the point in feeling something if you're not going to feel it strongly.
I can see that.
It's Let me say this because I want to know what you think. I always thought I was a very empathetic person, and I now other people have told me that, so I'm willing to believe it because I have a hard time believing
Mm-hmm.
things I think about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but what I realized about that is because I'm very empathetic, I usually understand like at least something about why somebody to a point where maybe I shouldn't be worried about it even.
Mm-hmm.
But the few times where I'm like, I just don't understand that, it bothers me to an incredible degree. Not like, not, I don't, it's not in a judgmental way. It's more
You haven't figured out the
I am
problem.
frustrated with myself for being unable to understand this. Why don't I get this?
Huh. That's interesting. I can't say that I feel the same way about things that I can't figure out. Do you think that maybe it's just like the you just really want that last piece of the puzzle, you know, kind of a feeling like you're a problem solver? That's
That's
some yang
definitely in there.
energy.
That's definitely in there.
Yeah, that's some
But I don't, the tendency when you, I feel the tendency when you don't understand what someone's doing is to judge them. It's the unconscious act that
yeah,
happens when you don't understand what somebody's doing.
yeah.
So I feel myself leaning into that. I'm making a judgment
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I want to you have to make judgments about people, right? Ego is there for a reason. But I at least like to go into it with a sort of core of understanding so
Mm-hmm.
that I maybe can veer away from certain things, you know? Does that make sense?
There you are. He's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, call me out when you feel like I'm
No,
not
no.
being genuine because it will help me.
I think that you are actually very empathetic and empathetic in a way in which you kind of like see what's going on. It's with you, this is just from, you know, even before I did all this and like lived in your brain for a little bit and wrote 23 pages about it. I always sense that like you kind of always know what's going on. Um, and that's a trait of empathy, but also you don't necessarily take on the emotions of what's going on. Like you you assimilate it and use it as information, and then you know what I mean?
I
Like
internalize it.
Yeah, but you're sensitive to what's going on in the room. Like I've actually seen you like laugh at a joke from 2 rooms away. You know what I mean? That like happened right next to me, and I was like, what the hell?
That's interesting.
Yeah. You just always kind of have like, you know, your feelers out, and
That's true. I think it's both.
yeah.
Depending, because a perfect example is a party like that or something where something happens to. I can't possibly empathize
With everybody.
but I can do it the way you're doing, where I'm keeping tabs.
Right.
It actually helps me be able. Now I'm thinking about it. It helps me be able to meander between people.
Yeah.
I can completely switch to what these people are talking about or what mood's going on here because I'm already aware.
I actually, can I like flip forward real quick?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm a talker.
No. All right. I'm a talker as well. So you have a very interesting, this is normally like what I like to do is go through where all the planets are situated in a chart. But I'm going to go to the very last planet, which is Pluto. And another thing too, speaking of archetypes, is that these are, you know, many of these planets are named after ancient Roman gods that also correlate to like ancient Greek gods. And it's important because, for example, Mars is Aries, the god of war, and fireball energy. Mars actually rules, like under the Mars/Aries rulership are all weapons, like weaponry, like machinery, like that kind of.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I just snuck a look at what my Mars.
Yeah, your Mars is in Taurus.
Right. Yeah. That rings very true to me.
Which is what the universe gave you in order to further your Taurus development.
Scout.
No, it's okay.
Get down.
So your Pluto is in Scorpio in the 11th house.
So that's another fire sign?
No, Scorpio is a water sign.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Scorpio is a water sign. I identify very greatly with Scorpio people, and I have many of them close to me in my life because I have my sun and my Mercury, which is what, you know, governs how I process information and learn and like talk to people, any sort of thing that has to do with communication, is in Scorpio. It's in the Scorpio house. So I have a lot of Scorpionic energy to me. But also the 8th house, because of Scorpio, rules like esoteric matters and mysteries and like digging deep, and, you know, and Pluto is everything that Scorpio is. Pluto is the like zodiac's detective. He is the ruler of the underworld, and therefore he is very interested in power, very interested in those kind of power dynamics, sexual dynamics, like he also rules transformations. And if you think about the ancient ways of depicting the underworld, it's sort of a vast like wasteland I've seen it in so many, because I was really into, I'm Greek, but you know, I was into Greek mythology for like a hot minute, still kind of am.
Everybody knows the Vassilakis are Greek.
We're very, very Greek. Seriously, first generation status. And there's always like gold. There's nuggets of gold in the underworld. You know what I mean? And it's because like it's where humanity deposits its waste and its wisdom. It's just where everything goes. So, and Pluto is such a detective that it has this penetrative gaze. And if you have like wherever Pluto is in your chart is where you're going to be the most, I guess, just like aware and intuitive of what's going on with the people, and you're going to really want to get to the heart of the matter. It's where you want to dissect the most. And your Pluto is in the 11th house, which is the house, it's the second to last house, and your 11th house rules like social organizations, communities, like things that are of it's the we house. Do you know what I mean? Not the we house, that's something. It's more like it deals with everything that is the opposite of the ego. It deals with so it's your social life. You know what I mean? Your sense of power, where you enjoy having power is in your social life. And that can also, that can translate, like that kind of sounds bad, right? It's actually a really awesome placement for like a politician to have.
Yeah. That's funny. You know how many people have told me that I should be in politics?
Really?
Yeah. I don't want to though.
No. That's not where you're going to be the happiest.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I said, that sounds like hell to me.
Yeah. So I'm going to get in your Pluto, and then I'm going to tell you where you're going to be the happiest. which is the fifth house.
I think they say that because of the way I look.
Why?
I look like a politician.
You got glasses?
I got glasses. I seem somewhat informed.
I think it's because you like to talk to everybody.
That's true.
You know, I think you can talk to pretty much anyone.
That's true.
So because Pluto is a social planet, it transits very slowly. So it's, it affects generations. So you are in the Pluto and Scorpio generation, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is going to be the same as you in that regard, because you're in the 11th house. Somebody else could have it in an entirely different area of life. So your Pluto is in Scorpio, which is like straight up double Scorpio. You know what I mean? It's hella Scorpio. And it's in your house of, community and, things that you belong to that are a part of a group. Right. So.
Things that okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So let me
That's very interesting.
Yep. Now that you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Pluto is also very secretive and doesn't really plays his cards close to his chest. Would prefer to find out everything they can about everybody else first before sort of like making a move, and just wants to figure out everything that's going on. It's like such a behind the scenes, like politician, like sort of like, not, I don't want to use the term manipulation, but like, sort of like analyzing the social situation and aiming it, like driving it.
No, that's totally, yeah. Yep.
So
that's interesting, because I have one of my biggest fears is, I don't know if you've ever seen like a mob form, like a group of people just.
Oh yeah, I have.
That's the most terrifying thing to me.
Really?
Yes.
Like the chaos of a mob.
The chaos of a mob. The way that a group can sort of go from regular to.
That's really interesting.
This really terrifying state of not thinking. You know what I mean?
How long have you had this fear?
Probably as long as I can remember.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I mean, seeing it happen made it a lot worse.
Yeah.
So group dynamics are very important to me.
Right. No, it's interesting because I'm also thinking about, I'm moving on from your 11th house and I'm thinking about your 12th house, which is really, really, really interesting house. I think it's a very key factor in what you are supposed to accomplish in this world. And I'm trying to decide if I should just actually, you know what?
Stick with what you want to do.
Yeah, I want to go back. Okay, so this is actually, I want to talk about where your sun and your moon placements are.
Okay.
Because your sun, moon, Mercury, and Venus, they're all in Aries, but your sun and your moon are in the 5th house, and your Mercury and your Venus are in the 4th house. And I will explain. Yeah.
Are they usually in the same house?
They don't always have to be in the same house, because they're just kind of like spread apart. And like the houses are, the houses actually, the signs have a specific amount of degrees and that never changes. But based on what was going on in the sky, the houses are different sizes.
So the sun and the moon are in the same house.
Yep.
They're like the exact same energy.
You have a really tight conjunction between your sun and the moon, which is I think they're like about a little over 1 degree apart. They're just hanging out together all the time.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is good and bad. Because if your sun is very strong, and the moon, if you think about it, the moon is a reflective planet. The moon reflects the light of the sun. But it's just as important in its own right, and it can get overshadowed. That kind of a tight conjunction is called a combust. And it's because the sun, sort of like dries up and like makes the other planet like just weak and like feeble and just like it's too hot. I don't like it over here. But with certain planets, like say for Mars is like a hot, dry planet. They do all right in a combust, but the moon is like the quintessential like wet planet. It's the emo planet. But what's great is that because they are so close to each other, they're in the same house, and they both connect to the same matters, which I'll get into. But all right, so the 5th house rules. The 5th house is natural ruler is Leo. So if you know anything about Leo, you know that they really value like self-expression and creativity, and it is generally like, look at a meme and it's like, oh my God, I love my hair, or I just want all this attention all the time. And it's true in a way, but it's just because they need to express themselves. It is their birthright, and it is there's a lot of big feelings happening there. But the 5th house governs like romance, not long-term partnerships, like the beginning of romantic affairs. Every art that you can think of, all the creative arts, just passions and like pleasure. It's like it's kind of a decadent house, and it's a fun house, and it's meant to express. All the houses have correlating ages too, of 7 years. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's all a pattern, so you can sort of like look at one thing and understand. Like the Aries house is from year 1 to 7, and then you can think about what's happening in the life of a 1 to 7-year-old, and you can sort of see that they're developing their personality. They're trying to see like what they can how they can inflict their personality in this world, and the fifth house correlates to like teenage years. So it's like a carefree situation, and that's where your moon and your sun are. And so there's two things that I want to get into about that. The first thing is that it's via those routes, and in particular with you, I think there is an element of being around creative things, as well as, you also want to express yourself in that way. It's not just being around them. That will help you become the fullest, like realize what you were supposed to be. And your Pluto in the 11th house of social groups is hanging out, and it's there because I'm pretty sure it's through that route that you're going to have the most power, and therefore you can sort of like make your fifth house sun and moon happy in that way.
I can make them happy in the social dynamic way.
Yeah, like if you use your social behind the scenes social skills, it doesn't have to sound like as nefarious as it does.
I get it.
Yeah, no, if you just utilize like the skills that you have, like the gifts that this house has given you, in order to make what you want happen, like make what the core of your being wants to happen. So
that's so interesting,
right? So you can just say, this is a strength, this is a strength. How do I make these strengths work together to like get what I want?
I almost resist that.
You shouldn't,
because what you're saying.
Are you Catholic, Jimmy?
I was raised Catholic.
All right.
But
I'll get into that later.
Kind of what you're saying is, so if a group of friends, how do I put this? I'm always there.
Yeah.
If you need anything, I'll be there.
Yeah.
I don't like doing that the other way around, even though I know they will.
Oh, you mean you don't like to ask for help?
Yeah.
Right. I don't either.
I don't. It's not even just help. I feel almost guilty if someone helps me.
Really?
So I think that's a problem.
Because it's a relinquishment of power, maybe?
Maybe. That's interesting.
Honestly, as I was doing this, my like immediate thought was, that you are like just the perfect candidate for shadow work. Have you ever heard of shadow work?
Yeah.
Oh, you are like, because there's so much of you that is fire and light and whatnot, but the darker elements they're there and they're pretty strong. And I think that maybe you give them too much power. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that you do, and I don't think it's going to help you. I think with some people it'll help them to like lean into those, but I don't think it'll help you.
That's fairly interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like Jungian stuff happening with you, and shadow work is really good.
I am very into Jung. I find shadow work to be very fulfilling when I've done it.
Really?
Yes.
I'm just starting my shadow work journey.
It's not. I mean, I guess it's fun in a way, but it's also really not. Because I don't think fun is a word I could use for it. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's powerful.
Yeah.
Because essentially what you're doing is looking at yourself very honestly.
Right.
And finding the thing that you don't want to look at.
Right.
That's there.
Right.
That's always following you, like your shadow.
Right.
Scout, get down. Your shadow is cast by the light.
Yeah.
Get down.
That's okay.
And then sort of people think of shadow work, I think, wrong, because not everyone, obviously, but a lot of people, I think that means like removing the bad parts of yourself, but it's not.
You can open up their grimoire and sort of like cast spells.
It's more like looking at it honestly and thinking, how can I use this?
Right.
Not how do I get rid of it?
Right.
And I definitely struggle with
right.
My initial reaction most of the time when I see something is to be like, stamp that out.
Right.
And that's not shadow work.
Right. And something that I've noticed too, and I think that this applies to you, it also applies to me too, which is why it took me so long to get to this point, is that like, I think you're just like a good person. You know what I mean? Like that was, no, you are though. Like even the fact that you're worried about like feeling guilty about the stupidest things, you know what I mean? Like you're just like a good, honest pure in a lot of ways person. And if you're like that, then I think that your shadow can be very strong for a variety of reasons. One of them is because, you're just like, I've dealt with all this stuff already. Like, I don't understand why I feel this way. But also, like, the stuff that you haven't dealt with is probably because it's real hard.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because you're not afraid to look at yourself. There's not really a lot of scary stuff in there. I mean, I'm just assuming. But, like,
But what there is yeah.
tough. Yeah.
There's also the problem I have with identifying as a good person.
Yeah.
Which I do unconsciously a lot of the time. And then
you do identify or you don't?
I find myself thinking I'm a good person.
Yeah.
And not that I'm not, but it's like, it makes it even more difficult to accept the things that would make you not such a good person.
Okay.
Like when you've completely
you have standards.
I've completely identified with the good part of myself.
Yeah.
So if I accept that that's part of me, then my whole identity is shattered.
Right. But the whole thing about shadow work is that, like, just repressing it is giving it more and more power. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
That's why it's called the shadow, because it is part of you.
Oh, yeah. It's totally. Shadow work is weird.
You can't escape it.
No, you can't. It's always there. It's like Peter Pan.
That's very interesting. Do you think the group thing, I'm thinking about group dynamics. One of the things that always happens, and it never was a thing that I did with thought. It's just, if I'm walking with a group of people, I like to be in the back. I want to make sure nobody's left behind. I want to make sure everyone's in front of me so I know where they are, so that nobody, Oh,
that's some Pluto stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's actually like it's a good example to say that that's a good like manifestation of a Pluto influence. It's not like you're trying to have a little bit of the power in the situation, but like for good reason, not necessarily a bad reason most of the time, probably.
I think I would be honest in this situation. I can't think of a bad reason.
Right.
It's usually more, I know it feels bad to be left behind. It feels like being forgotten, and I don't want anyone to feel that way.
That's true. Aw. Cute. Such a little baby Aries. So.
All right. So, okay. So.
All right.
What is Mercury?
Mercury
and Venus. Are they tied together?
Mercury is
Can I guess?
Yeah.
The Mercury is like.
Think about archetypes. Who's Mercury?
I actually can't remember who Mercury is.
So Mercury is the same.
Who's Mercury in
Hermes?
The messenger of the gods.
Yes, exactly.
So the voice.
Yep. Exactly. The communication between the gods and humanity.
I know the Greek ones. I'm really bad with the Roman ones.
Oh, I'll just give you they stole everything anyways. It's fine. They did. It's Hades in the 11th house, not Pluto.
That actually makes that actually rings more. I understand that much more.
Okay, I'll add that. I'll kind of translate that next time. So your Hermes is in. Mercury is the third house. Mercury is the third house. So what do you do? So the second house is ruled by Taurus, and that's kind of like when you build a earthly foundation, like a stability, and then you learn to appreciate your senses. It's that kind of factor. The house of Mercury is the ages, I can't remember, it's probably 12, 13 on for the next 7 years, where you're learning. You're learning how to communicate. You're learning how to assimilate the information that you receive from the world. It's how your brain works, your processes, all your mental processes. And it's how you communicate with other people. It's how you learn the methods with which, how you express yourself. And because your Mercury is in the fourth house rules matters of home. It's the familial house. It's ruled by Cancer, which is the great matriarchal sign. And so those things lie in your fourth house, and they are concerned with fourth house matters. And so you may have just learned a lot from your family, just had a tight family, maybe learned a lot, maybe they really sort of guided you with how you think. Mercury is a really interesting planet. I think it really says a lot about people, but honestly, the fourth house is my least favorite house for some reason. I don't find it very compelling. I do have a very strong family life, so I don't know.
So that's what it is. It's family.
Yeah, it's family. It's the people that are closest to you, and just what you what you think home is.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And so because your Venus and your Mercury in there, I think that it indicates that matters of intellectualism and matters of the heart are where you feel most at home, or where if you get your shit together in those departments, then you will feel like you've come home.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And those things are in Aries too, obviously. So there's like an Aryan element to how, how your heart works and how your mind works, which is quick.
So
it's kind of impatient sometimes.
So oh wow. What did we say that we're like clothes?
Yeah, the rising sign.
The rising sign's like clothes.
Yeah.
The moon is like your mother, like a mother part of you. What would Mercury be?
I would just say it was your brain.
Honestly, it's the intellect.
It's your intellect.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can't really stress how it also rules communication and how you interact with other people. It's ruled by Gemini, the twins. The twins is all about interplay between two people.
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense.
Patterns.
So is it the way you think too?
Yes, Mercury is the way you think.
so they're all Aries.
Right, they're all Aries.
What's the other one?
Venus.
What's Venus?
Venus.
What god is that?
Aphrodite.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the
love.
Yes, it's your love life, but it's also what you value. You know what I mean? So
interesting.
Yeah, it's like the things just that you value. It could have, it could be like ethics, or it could just be like the stuff that you like, just things that you value, the way that you express value.
That makes sense, because that's the whole thing with me saying I don't see the point in having feelings about something if you don't have strong feelings.
That makes sense.
I feel like that connects to that. It's like
to your Aries?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
As a Venus sign.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I love things that I care about.
Right. You should. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Ethics is a great example.
Yeah.
I find ethics very interesting because, I don't know, I feel like if I understood ethics perfectly, then I would solve all my problems. But I also recognize...
Can anyone understand ethics perfectly?
Right, exactly. It's an unending... It's like having a puzzle that you'll never completely solve, but it's always interesting.
Is it always interesting if you can't solve it, though?
To me. I also only really like problems that can't be solved.
Okay.
Because
that's Aries too. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Something you can't have.
It's the way I've come to be healthy with ideals. Mm-hmm. Ideals are things that you'll never reach, but you should always reach towards.
Right.
When you start to think you can reach it, Scout.
It's just a binder clip, but it's shiny and red.
You're being bold tonight.
No, she got it right. She's warm.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, but conversely, it could also mean that... Where was I going with this?
Okay. Can I...
Yeah, go.
Tell me if this makes sense.
No, go for it.
So what I've understood so far, what is Sagittarius again?
It's your rising sign.
But what is it?
All right. Okay. What is the rising sign, or what is Sagittarius?
What is Sagittarius? What's the god?
Sagittarius is Jupiter, which is...
Jupiter? I don't know.
Yeah. Who does Jupiter translate to in Greek mythology? I don't particularly remember. Is it Dionysus? Jupiter...
Oh, like wine?
Well, Sagittarius is... So all the mutable signs have duality to them. And you can see that really strongly in something like Gemini. There's two. Pisces, two fish. Virgo's the other mutable one, and that's weird. It's more like the inside versus the outside, the mask they put on. But Sagittarius is half man, half horse. And not only is he half man, half horse, he's like a centaur. He's a wise man on top of a horse. He's a philosopher on top of a horse.
That's Sagittarius?
Yeah, that's Sagittarius. That's the symbol. And like if you look at the symbol, and he's also got a bow and arrow ready to shoot. You know what I mean? So he's just going for it. He's just like there to take what life has to offer. And Jupiter is a planet of expansion and luck, and like Sagittarians are very happy-go-lucky, and they like a lot of times don't think before they speak.
That makes sense for the clothes I wear.
Same.
That makes the metaphoric clothes I wear like that. Okay, so I act Aries. The way I take action.
Yes. Okay, so
I don't mean behave. I mean like the way I take action in things. The way I am an active participant.
Yes, your core being is Aryan. Do you know what I mean? Like your most...
I don't like that word.
sorry. Your most like inner feelings, a lot of times like your sun sign really only comes out with the people that know you the best. It's like where you like express like kind of the best and worst aspects of
Okay.
yourself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like really like when somebody really gets to know you, they're like, all right,
Yes.
I see this now.
Yes.
Yeah. And Sagittarius is equally, as much part of you because it is your persona, but it's also like how you view the world, how you want the world to view you. And yeah, it's a mask in a way, but you chose that mask for a reason, and Sagittarius is so interesting to me because it is this duality between such a higher level of thinking, like the higher mind of man,
Yep.
sitting on top of a beast, like the constant struggle between the higher mind and bestial, base instincts.
Oh yeah.
And the whole thing is you got to blend it, but you also have to accept both aspects of it within yourself. And Sagittarius rules expansion, which means like higher education, philosophical things. You're super philosophical, like foreign cultures and religions and all those things are under the umbrella of Sagittarius.
But that is like the picture I put up of myself.
Yeah.
Or the way.
But it's also the way you view the world.
It's not just yeah.
Yeah.
Right. The way I get it. I get it.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does.
It is a little confusing with those two things because, in my opinion, they're both equally important.
No, it makes sense. It's like to put it in terms of high school.
Mm-hmm.
You might be a goth, right? You might dress up goth. That's the way you're interacting with people. It's not just a mask.
Right.
It's also part of your identity.
Right. It's expressing things that you're into.
Yes.
Things that like resonate with you.
Even though at home you might.
Maybe like into Katy Perry,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like secretly.
And only your best friends know it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but it makes you so happy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
When I say act, I guess it's the internal act.
Yeah.
The way I am.
But also, you can also look at it though. There is that aspect of it, but it's also it might be easier to think of it as like your birthright, as in like this. Oh. The Aries qualities are what you need to embody in order to be fully happy. Like you need. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, don't.
I'm so resistant to that.
You can't.
I know.
You can't. You know what? It's also like being a Leo. Everybody thinks you're like vainglorious and like just need attention all the time. And I'm like, no, it's maybe like a little bit, but also like, no, that's not what it's about. It's about having big feelings.
Your sun sign is Sagittarius?
No, I'm a Leo, but my Aries, not my Aries, my rising and my moon is Sagittarius. So I'm also like I'm triple fire. I have a lot of fire in my chart too. And
because you don't strike me as that description of what you just.
You don't think I'm philosophical?
No, what you characterized Leo as.
Oh, the Leo. See?
Yeah, you don't strike me as that at all. I have a lot more.
Yeah. Well, my sun sign is like really like heavily cloaked in some 8th house shit, first of all. And I also have a lot of Sagittarius, which once I found out about rising signs, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to form like a mental picture of this because so Aries is not only the way I would be happiest, the way my true self or something like that. I struggle. It's hard.
The spark of your spirit is Aries. Is kind of how I feel about it.
The essence of me.
Yeah.
Got it. Also, the way I receive is Aries.
Yes, your moon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the way I love is Aries. And the way it's hard.
The way you communicate.
The way I communicate is also Aries.
Yeah.
But I do it dressed as a Sagittarius.
Yeah. But however, they are very compatible blended energies because all fire signs,
that makes so much sense because it's like I have this crazy power of being able to say pretty abrasive things. And but nobody seems to be upset with me for it
because it's a benevolent energy. Jupiter is just like, it's called the zodiac's great benefic. It just is like blessings and luck and jolly and happy-go-lucky. Sags are just so happy-go-lucky sometimes, and they just talk a lot.
That is me in my social life, 100%. Yeah. And I wonder sometimes about that because sometimes I feel sometimes like if I said that, I wouldn't have been judged harshly, but that person was really judged harshly for saying that.
Right.
Because
you didn't mean it. Like, people can sense intent.
That's so bizarre to me.
Sensing intent?
It's not. It's just like, for some reason, it's more bizarre when it's me. Like, how do you know that I mean this from a benevolent place?
Oh, because I can read your energy. That's like, You know what I mean?
I
Like,
do. It's just,
you can just tell it's like a thing.
it is very interesting
Yeah.
because I do feel like when I open my mouth, it's very not like the way I am in the group. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
if you were to take a snapshot or like a video with no, where it's just behavior and no talking,
Mm-hmm.
then I do come across as this like really happy, jolly,
Yeah. Yeah.
happy-go-lucky guy.
Yeah.
But if you record this conversation, I am not like that. I am very much direct. Well,
Right.
maybe direct isn't the right word.
I know what you mean, though. You're not direct, but you are direct, actually. You're honest. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really find it necessary to hide you are because, like, you're a baby that hasn't experienced, like, that kind of psychic pain. And not, like, karmic pain. I don't want to say psychic because, you know, Aries still has feelings. Very impatient, rash feelings at times. But, you know, it's still valid, I guess.
Very often, especially with any relationship I care about, I feel like I don't have an option except to be honest. And then I feel really bad about that.
You shouldn't.
I feel bad about the fact that it's going to hurt or it might
Yeah.
hurt,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Which, as I've gotten older, I've learned that I don't get to choose how people interpret things.
That's actually, so I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's
No, you're
actually, I
good.
never thought about this before. That is kind of an Aries trait in a lot of ways because Aries is so concerned with the self and the ego and I that you're just like worrying about this poor little person's feelings and how they're going to react to what I say. I have all this power. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
very egocentric.
Yeah.
It's very narcissistic in a way.
Yeah.
And
But it's good that you recognize that.
yeah, as I've gotten older, I've learned
Yeah.
the sort of
It's my favorite phrase as I've gotten older.
yeah, because it takes time, and I've just sort of realized that even though I don't think that feeling is ever going to go away,
Mhm.
that I have that
Mhm.
feeling, that it is not my responsibility.
Mhm.
It is not about me how they choose to react to
Right.
something that I say that I mean,
Right.
and you know,
Right. No, absolutely.
doesn't mean I don't say bad things. I need to apologize. Well, of course I do.
Yeah.
I feel like I usually do. I can't think of many situations where I don't apologize. Some of that, I wonder about that.
About what? Apologizing?
Well, some of it I do give credit to my parents because probably the worst thing I did as a kid was gave one of my best friends a black eye. I just he kept spraying me with a hose. I warned him. I had to
He
keep
deserved
changing my
it.
clothes, and I warned him. I was like, if you do it again, I'm gonna hit you, and I did. And then my parents made me go walk alone to his house and apologize with his parents there, and it was like I really didn't want to do it, but I learned a really valuable lesson.
Yeah.
I felt better about it. We were still
Yeah.
friends after.
Yeah.
It felt like I owned it. You know, I made it
Did
about me
he
again.
apologize for
Um,
being a little jerk?
I don't know. I feel like at that point, I feel like he didn't need to. But yeah, like I did make it about me again
Yeah.
because I felt empowered by that.
Right.
You know,
Right.
It's like
But
my whole life is better
Right.
if I actually own my.
Right.
If I know something to be true, which is that I should not have punched you,
Yes.
and I do feel bad about it, and I am sorry that I did that, saying it is better for me.
Instead of worrying about what the quote unquote right thing is to do, like a justice situation, I struggle with that a lot too because I always just feel much better if I'm interacting with people from a place of just like, I don't get pissed off that easily. Should I like really think about this person maybe is hurting me? I'm not exactly sure. You know, like some of my friends get really angry with me. But I have a Sagittarius moon and I'm happy-go-lucky.
That's interesting.
You know, and I think about like the ways that I react to the world and the, I guess, emotional wounds that I receive. I think about them in a philosophical way. However, if I look at my shadow, then sometimes I see like, yeah, this person fucking hurt me and I'm mad about it, but I also don't really get that I'm mad about it. And I don't like, anger is not an emotion. Not that I'm uncomfortable with it, but I'm just not used to it.
Anger is the shadow I have worked on that I feel the most comfortable with.
You have a lot of anger.
I definitely,
Yeah.
And I have struggled with anger, especially when I was younger, and a lot of it, the click for me was realizing that looking at it was the only way to fix it, to move forward, because I was getting angry, And I realized that a lot of why I was angry
Mm-hmm.
was that I wasn't dealing with how angry I was, or I wasn't.
You were repressing it?
Yes, I
Yeah.
wasn't accepting that I am an angry person.
Okay.
And I don't feel angry anymore.
Yeah.
I have the ability
Right.
to get angry, but I now feel like it's within my control.
Doesn't serve you as it once did, maybe.
Yeah, well, it does serve me. It didn't used to serve. You know what I
you're
mean?
Right. You're right.
Like it now is something that I can say, I can let out the appropriate amount of this
Mm-hmm.
in this situation because I have a right to be angry about this. And I don't have a right to let that anger control me,
Mm-hmm.
but I do have a right to let it out. And
Yeah.
not that I'm a
Totally.
perfect person. I definitely
No.
have gotten angry and
Right.
and regretted my behavior, but that's the shadow work. That's my clearest example
Mm-hmm.
of that because, man, my early 20s, I was an angry
Really?
person.
You do have one of the things that I was like, there's a lot of placements here that are going to cause anger issues for you, and it's not all just the Aries stuff. You know what I mean? It's not all that stuff. There's a lot of other stuff. Like once we get into like aspects of the planets, which is you see these lines over here on the chart.
I do.
Yeah, these are like the angles that certain planets form within each other, and some of them form things that cause like anger between these planets, and some of them are like make them besties.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, totally.
Let's do that because
Totally.
I'm very interested.
Totally.
Anger is something I have. My own anger is something I have really thought about. So I definitely will have a lot of thoughts about it. Which ones do you think
Let
would
me
cause
find.
it? I like how you phrased it as anger between the planets
Yeah.
because it's
It's the relationship between the planets. You know
and
what
that's
I mean?
an internal thing.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, that was a big click for me too. Was like I feel like I'm angry at this person or at the world, but the truth is I'm angry at myself. I'm angry at parts of myself, or parts of myself are angry with each other. And yeah, that rings very true to me.
Okay. Do you want me to go with the anger aspects of it first, or do you want me to go with what should precede it?
You do that.
All right. So I find that your Neptune placements are really interesting. Your Neptune is in the first house, and any planet that is in the first house is important because it's part of your rising sign. Do you know what I mean? I also have a first house Neptune, and Neptune is the Poseidon, god of the sea, and therefore rules like dreamy nature, the subconscious, in a different way than how Pluto rules the subconscious. Like I think that Neptune, I kind of in my own mind envision them both as being like one of those like joke eyeglass situations where like there's the lenses are crazy, but Neptune like lets you see what is not and allows you to create something from what you see through those Neptunian glasses.
Oh,
It's a creative planet. It rules Pisces. You know, he's got a lot
water.
of knowledge. Yeah, it's water. Very intuitive, very mystical, and that's in your first house. And the Pluto lens is more like just like laser eyes. Like, let me find out what's happening here.
That's Hades versus
spy goggles.
Poseidon.
Exactly.
Poseidon is almost the real antagonist.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
you know,
Poseidon's fire. Love him.
It's funny because most people think, I think probably because of the Disney Hercules movie, that Hades is like the bad guy.
I've never seen Hercules.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't love it. I mean, I think that James Woods as Hades is funny.
James Woods.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, so like I took issue with that because I in all of the Greek mythology I read, Poseidon is more of the bad guy.
Yeah, he's older too, so he's
not
got
really
a lot
a bad guy.
No.
He's just a force of nature.
He is who he is.
Yes.
Everybody is who they are.
Yeah.
It's not inherently bad or good, and that's what you have to. Aries, Mars, the god of war, he's necessary in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? But he has this other side, which is, you know, can be cruel and brash and cause problems. But he also makes things happen, and he provides like just a very pure energetic spirit to get shit done and make things move in the world, you know? And Neptune and Poseidon, you know, he rules, I think within this, okay, so if you look at something through water, you know what I mean? Neptune rules the water. Things are blurry. Things are dimmed. The borders are weird. You know what I mean? And Neptune adds, like, he also rules like secrets and deception. You know, bury something in the sea, who knows when you'll see it, kind of a thing. It holds a lot of secrets. And it can add a dreaminess to your personality, like a real just love of the arts, which is like a given, but it can also blur your boundaries of identity. Yeah, a first house Neptune can blur those.
So this is the effect of that part of me. How that part of me manifests is what we're talking about.
Yes,
That
exactly.
we're not saying that is the manifestation. This is you know what I mean? Like
Sort of.
so what for the moon or for the rising sign I said it's like the clothes you wear.
Right. Okay.
So I'm trying to think of an analogy.
Neptune is like your wizard's robe.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't expect. I mean, actually, that makes sense because actually, when I think of Poseidon, I think of salt water and like tidal waves and stuff. It's like it's where nothing makes any sense. You know, where things don't grow. You can't drink it. You can't like, like.
Wow.
The
You really
land.
are a very logical thinker.
The land is where things make sense, and the sea is where nothing makes sense.
Okay. Do you find that you so this past couple of years, I had like a major like aha moment with myself in which I realized that I've been using the wrong part of my brain for my entire life, the logical part of my brain. Yeah, it doesn't work very well, Jimmy. That part is fucked.
I know. I know. But it kind of works.
But no, it's fine. I mean, like, because I'm smart enough to like deal with it. Is really the thing. But
does salt water work though? Just it's not that it's useless. It's just that it goes. It's mysterious. It's like we have this water. Water is something that we drink that brings life to us. But this water is weird.
What about everything else that lives in the sea, Mr. Aries?
That's true.
Ain't all about you, bro.
That's true. I feel like I'm speaking negatively about it. I do understand why it would be creativity.
I understand why you're trying to figure it out, though. Like,
yes.
You're just trying to figure it out.
Actually, this is perfect. I do understand why it's creativity. It's the same reason I struggle with creative processes, which is that I logic it. You know, I have a hard time letting go because I want to understand. I've had moments where I have let go and I've felt jazz is a great example.
I think that's your Pluto, maybe.
You think so?
I think Pluto's a control freak. It's fine, yeah. You have some kind of Saturn stuff going on too. But
so Poseidon's like magic, creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The secrets, lies, and deception though as well.
Yeah.
And like it's and if it's in your first house, which is the house of identity, it has a tendency to blur the you kind of like sponge up the traits of other people because your literal identity like borders are blurry. You know what I mean? You can change to be somebody that you think somebody wants you to be.
Oh, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, but you also like relate your personality is very tied in with the arts and with being creative, and it's very important to you. And it also really imparts an intuitiveness to a person. So, and you also, your Neptune is also like trine your moon and trine your sun. And a trine is one of these aspects, and it's a favorable aspects. It's an angle that like, you know, they're like buddies. They're very blended energies. They support each other.
Which one? The moon?
Both your moon and your sun, because they're both together anyways. So of course anything that happens with your sun is going to happen with your moon.
That does make sense. I mean, there's a Christian parallel there.
Really?
I think it's like it's a little bit like the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit in a way. I mean,
I can see that. Like the trine?
Yeah.
The Trinity?
The Trinity.
Yeah.
It might be maybe not Father, Son, maybe it's like Father, Virgin Mary, and and the Holy Spirit's kind of the mysterious thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
I'm just happy you call it the Holy Spirit, not the Holy Ghost.
No, I like Spirit. Ghost sounds like too human.
Yeah.
So I'm a Capricorn in
yes.
Poseidon.
Yes, you are, which is actually pretty good because like Capricorn has a very sort of like firm grip on the world and is like goal oriented and, you know, savvy in that way, and also kind of a hard ass.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Saturn. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which is Chronos, the god of time. It's father time. If Jupiter beams on something, it expands its qualities. Saturn restricts them. It makes you nervous to express anything that's ruled by Saturn. It makes you not want to change, but it also tells you that these are lessons that you need to work on, and also that things come with time. So Saturn is like the dad planet.
Okay.
And Jupiter is the like, I don't know, trouble making best friend planet, but also like fun and like nice and blessings and good luck and stuff like that.
It, like Eddie
Yeah.
Haskell. My old soul is showing.
So yeah, so like those really like blend, but it kind of like Neptune also, because it's a water sign. It can also cause drinking problems and like problems with changing your reality. It doesn't necessarily. You also have, so this is in your first house, and I'm pretty sure. Let me see. I think you have Saturn opposing your first house. No, I lied. But still, like you have a lot of other placements that sort of like keep you back. It keeps you from fully expressing these things, which in a way is what you need to learn how to do, but also it stops you from letting it run away, from you. It's a control thing, and control can go either way. So that's kind of how I like to look at these things is, if you see these things and you see that this aspect is what's giving you a problem, it doesn't make it inherently bad. It just means you should see the flip side of it. Everything has a core.
Do you think that this area of me is something where shadow work would be very important?
Your ascendant? Yes.
Yes.
I do. Because, I do think that anything that has to do with identity is important.
What about my Neptune?
Your Neptune, it's just one of those things where like you just kind of have to watch out for being overly idealistic with a lot of things. You know what I mean? That's one of the things that I was thinking of when you were talking about, being too idealistic. Neptune is a dreamer. It's just gonna like fantasize about like this perfect thing, and
He's kind of a jealous god too.
Neptune is.
I feel like, well, I'm thinking Poseidon.
Yeah.
He's a little jealous of Zeus.
Yeah. I don't really know if that translates within astrology though. I think the jealousy one is like, generally Pluto and Mars too, and Aries. You know what I mean? Because it's like, this is mine. It's all about me. What are you doing with my thing? What are you're ruining what I want to do. And I'm just going to quick to react in a very fiery way. And it's fine. It's your birthright.
I'm going to say that next time.
It's my birthright, bitch.
You can't be mad at me for this. This is my birthright.
So you kind of have, and the other thing too with Neptune is escapism. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to like face your problems because you're like, bye. Gonna go swimming.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So who's Capricorn?
Capricorn.
That's Saturn.
Yes, that's Saturn. Capricorn
and
is
that's
the mountain
time.
goat. Yeah.
So my interaction with the magic and that sort of thing is it takes time.
It takes time, but also like maybe you have a lot of self-imposed constraints upon it.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, it makes you happy, but like, there are rules here and you got to follow these rules.
That is 100% probably my most frustrating internal conflict.
Yeah. And it sucks because it's in your first house, and it's like how it's undermining your self-confidence.
That's one. Yes. Especially in like creative.
Yeah. Which is what you need to fulfill because you're in the fifth house. Your sun and your moon, your feelings and your purpose are about creative ventures.
I always feel like there's rules that I need to follow that don't work for me.
Right.
And maybe I should take that Aries energy of like breaking the rules there.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's,
It's really funny because actually some things happen in child. My mother talks about this. I used to draw a lot. I used to, and my art teacher in, I don't know, 5th, 6th, 7th grade told me I did it wrong. And I stopped doing it.
How do you draw wrong?
He just said the way I was doing things was the wrong way.
Okay.
And I took that very much like, okay, then I don't do this because I don't know how to do it any other way.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing about Aries too, is that they can get butthurt pretty easily because they're just so used to being coddled. You know what I mean? Like it's your first pain every single time.
Yep.
So that's another thing too. I see that with my kid a lot.
Yeah, it's funny because that might be why, as I've aged, that I have such a strong resistance to being coddled.
Maybe.
Because I do feel like I have missed out on things. Not to blame whoever coddled me.
Right.
But because
how do you not coddle a baby?
Right, exactly. But it's like my willingness to be coddled has caused me problems.
Yes.
And
I fully understand that.
Yes. That's a great example of one. It's like if I could go back and talk to younger me, I'd be like, yeah, that sucks. Do it anyway.
Right.
You know,
Right. And
you're going to
Capricorn.
keep getting yelled at for it and just ignore it. Or
Capricorn's really good for that too, because the Capricorn sigil is the mountain goat, and the mountain goat, like, survives in places no other animal can really survive, and it's just like slowly going up the mountain. It wants to get to the top, and it's going to, but it's going to take a minute, and it's willing to work to do it.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So that Capricorn energy adds an element of work ethic, I think, and just like
It's the tortoise and the hare.
mm-hmm. But it's a mountain goat.
But it's a mountain goat.
Yeah, but it's
the mountain
same...
works better because it's got a verticality to it.
Yeah.
It's not about winning a race. It's about ascending the mountain.
It's about achieving a goal.
Yeah.
So that's what Capricorn gives you here. You know, so it's a good place. But it's funny because it's like your ascendant doesn't encapsulate the whole of your first house. Because it's not. You want to hear something crazy? This is like a total side note, but this is like, when I found this out, it like kind of blew my mind. So I was reading about intercepted houses, which is when I mentioned before that the signs are divided equally, but the houses can have different sizes based on, you know, the mathematical angles. And so some houses are too big and they overlap, like an entire sign gets engulfed within them. And when a sign is engulfed within a house like that, then the house or the signs on like the edges of it kind of like overshadow it.
I was going to ask if that's like an eclipse almost.
Kind of, in a way, but you don't have any interceptions. I have a few.
You do?
Yeah, I have a few interceptions. And like once I was like, oh my God. But the interesting thing about this is that because of the way the earth and the sky work, science, if you're at like a higher latitude or a lower latitude, you have a higher chance of having many interceptions. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just like it skews everything.
Oh, right. That makes a lot of sense.
And if you have a lot of intercepted houses, there are a lot of aspects of it causes issues. There's a lot of aspects of your personality that aren't expressed. You have repression, blah, blah, blah. So what does that say about, on a global scale, the cultures that live in those places? Do you know what I mean?
That's very interesting. I really have to think about that.
Right? I've done some thinking about it, and mostly I'm just like, dang, you know? And then it just impacts the rest of the world.
So is it lower latitude that's more likely to happen?
Higher, closer to the poles.
The closer to the poles. That's
Those people are hardcore, man.
It's almost internalized, like we already know that. When you think, it's one of those things when you hear it, it's like, of course.
Right.
I'm thinking of Game of Thrones.
Right.
I mean, just
the
Winterfell. The North remembers. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
things are fine in the South.
Why does that intuitively feel correct?
Because winter sucks.
Yeah. You know what? No, but maybe it is just embedded knowledge. It's just like
totally.
The archetypes are kind of embedded, I feel like, in us. And
winter, nothing grows, everything is difficult. It's an infertile time, it's dark, there's no light.
Yes.
You know, but also, like, if you think about that kind of stuff, like, someone else will argue that is like their environmental factors that are making these,
who cares?
This people. It's both.
Yeah. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares what that's my attitude. It's like,
don't check yourself.
What?
Just say it. Who cares?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Practically, when we're talking practically about what might a person.
Yeah.
Maybe you're 100% right. Maybe they're 100% right. Probably both. But
the end result is the same.
The end result is the same. And let's say physically they are 100% correct and you're not. So what?
Right. So what? So my ego will be a little bruised, but it's fine.
No, but it could be something non-physical. Is my point?
Oh, right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I had this. This is a little diversion, but I think I was talking to somebody about. You know the story of Persephone and Hades.
I have a pomegranate tattoo.
Demeter, right?
I have a Persephone tattoo.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's an explanation for the seasons.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Hades wanted Persephone.
Yeah.
But he was supposed to. She was supposed to go down there, but
she did go down there, but she ate 6 pomegranate seeds, and so she was returned above, away from the underworld. But for every pomegranate seed that she ate, she had to go back every single year, and that's when her mother, the goddess of the harvest, mourned and caused fall and winter on the earth.
Oh.
So she has to go back and rule the underworld.
Wasn't there something about Demeter, right?
That's her mother. Yeah.
And she's like, agriculture.
Yes, she's goddess of the harvest. She's like an earth goddess.
And Persephone is what again?
Well, she's the queen of the underworld.
Right. Hades is death.
Yeah, Hades is the lord of the underworld. Yeah, so he's, yes.
Persephone isn't she kind of like warmth, sun, like?
I don't think so.
No.
No. Are you thinking of Artemis?
No.
Artemis
Who
is
am I
the moon.
thinking of?
Apollo.
What is she like? What is she the essence of?
Well, she wasn't a god.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what? That's an interesting question because I never really to me her essence is just like someone that was kidnapped and is entrapped for 6 months of the year, but then
Wait, isn't she growth?
She can be. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
She may be the shadow side. Maybe she represents having to do the shadow work and go underneath.
Right. But what I was saying was maybe it's not a good explanation for why we have spring, like the seasons, right? Maybe I can't argue with that, right? Not a good explanation. It doesn't explain the southern hemisphere, right?
Right.
But it does explain some other things. If the essence of agriculture tries to get too much out of the essence of growth or whatever, and it tries to prevent death.
There you go. That's better.
Tries to prevent death. You can't.
No, you can't.
It makes you. I mean, it's almost psychological in a way. It tells you something about the proper way of existing.
I know exactly what
in
you're
the.
talking
You know
about.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there are other truths in it that don't work physically.
Right.
They're not physical truths. They're not material truths. That's kind of my point.
No,
it's
I
like,
totally get it.
I feel like, to me, there's overlap, but maybe on the farthest edge of materialism, they're more right. And on the farthest edge of, I don't know what you would call it, the metaphysical, you're right. You know what I mean? And but most of us, it's like barely,
But we don't really acknowledge the metaphysical enough.
I completely agree.
We just don't, because we don't know. You can't see it. I mean, you can see it. Some people can see it. But that's what I was hinting at earlier, is that once I decided or like just allowed myself to lean into thinking in that way, it was like, having to be forced to write with my left hand my entire life. And now I can finally write with the hand that I knows how to write. So that was a real revelation for me. And, that's just the essence of just letting yourself be who you are. And it's only for the greater good.
Yeah.
It really just is.
I'm with you.
Yeah, making people do shit they don't want to do. I mean, that's a broad statement.
No,
I'm
with you. That's I love that little information that you just told me about the
intersected houses.
Intersected houses, right?
It's wild.
It is wild because it's another one of those places where, like, from our current perspective, they seem to match up pretty perfectly.
Right. You want to know another example that matches up pretty perfectly? So it correlates to one of your aspects, which is I think it's like a Pluto sextile Neptune situation, which a lot of like the bigger outer planets, they are not bigger, but the outer planets, they orbit much more slowly than the closer planets. So a lot of the aspects that occur with them are generational. Like there's this one aspect.
I was thinking that when you were mentioning, I think Pluto.
Yeah, there's a Pluto. I believe it is. I feel like I should know this thing by heart right now, but it's Neptune sextile Pluto, and that it's like Neptune is forming like a friendship with Pluto, and this aspect began coincidentally in 1942 during World War II. And it will end, I believe, in 2030. So, and some astrologers estimate that there are like 70% of the Earth's population has this aspect. So things like this are put in place in order to enact like global change. And, Neptune, as we were talking about, is very concerned with this aspect of Neptune is the sort of like the metaphysical side, the being mystical and having intuition and using that instead of that. And like Pluto is transformative and rules the death of certain things and the rebirth of others. And it's also very penetrating. So if you can think about these two forces being in like 70% of the population for the past however many years, of course it's going to cause this movement of people really just embracing those parts of themselves and creating spiritual movements
That's
and
so
moving the
interesting.
world forward as part of some kind of greater plan that we're really just like, an iota of.
That's so interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So the generational aspects are kind of crazy.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, everybody has them in like different houses though, so it's not like everybody is the same in that regard, but still,
Okay.
All
right, I have a question.
Yeah.
I see that Uranus, I'm also in the first house.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Okay, so Uranus, so
Uranus?
stupid, I know. It literally just means, we don't know, so it just means the sky, but my kid also thinks it's like the worst swear word right now. It's hilarious. And so Uranus is an interesting planet. I don't connect well to it because it rules Aquarius, which is the opposite sign of Leo. And I'm just like, what's going on here? Uranus is the planet of surprise. It's the planet of like innovation and forward thinking, and the planet of like bettering everyone versus just bettering yourself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool planet.
No, that speaks to me.
Yeah, it speaks to you, and it's in your first house of your identity. So it's definitely something, and it's also a planet that is concerned with literally just bettering the human race. Everything it does, it almost does, just like it's almost like an animal. It just, what it does has to happen. It doesn't have compassion nor malintent. It just needs to make this change, and therefore sometimes the change strikes like lightning. But
wow.
Within that, you get sharp insights and, progressive thinking, So that
being in my,
it's in your first house.
That makes so much sense to me.
And it's in Sagittarius, which is even more interesting for you because the way the area in which you will accomplish these things is Sagittarian in nature. So maybe the progressive thinking will occur in like the realm of philosophy or educational stuff like that, or like higher learning or like religion or spirituality.
That's the same as my ascendant.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. This is why I'm in self-conflict all the time. Wow.
Well, you're also in self-conflict because Saturn is conjunct your ascendant, which...
You said Sagittarius is the one with the horse?
Yeah.
And the rider?
Yeah. So essentially Sagittarius is forced to accept both sides of his nature.
That rings so incredibly true to me. It's like 2018 especially, I was thinking a lot, and I was doing a lot, and I was writing my thoughts. And my thoughts every time I wrote were always that.
Or always what?
That sort of moving things forward.
Right. Okay.
Like I became obsessed last year with how new things happen. Like how do new ideas take hold? Where did they come from, and how did they become? How does change happen? I was obsessed. And my conclusion was really that it starts with creatives, creativity. Obviously, for a new thing, you have to create it. So, wow, that's very interesting. And I am more philosophical in that area.
Yeah. No, you're philosophical across the board, I think.
Yeah, but then in that area especially, I want an explanation. I want this sort of that's so interesting.
And also you got Neptune there, so it's going to aid you with your creativity.
Like, I resist that part. That's the part that needs to work. I feel like the other one I don't know, but I feel like
you trust your mind, not your creative.
Yes.
You just trust your mind. I
trust my mind. That's a great way to put it.
What makes you think your creativity is not part of your mind, though?
Because I can't understand it. I can't explain it.
Yeah. There you go.
It's mystical.
It is mystical.
I'm in awe of it.
Yeah.
But being in awe is not good enough. For me, it's like I don't feel like I can accomplish anything in a state of awe.
What about inspiration, though? Doesn't that give you inspiration?
Yeah, it does.
You know what I mean?
It does.
Yeah. A state of awe. That's really... I don't want... It's adorable, though. I didn't want to use that word again. It just is, though.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you have a good first house, I think.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And you have Mercury is also trine your ascendant. So Mercury is buddies with your ascendant. So your communication and the way that you think like aids that. And Venus is trine your ascendant. You know what I mean? And so that's also maybe like your romantic life. It takes up a lot of how you identify, like your personality, how you identify it. It's just like it's part of it.
Wait a minute. Mercury and Venus are both trine.
They're trine your ascendant, which is they're forming a favorable angle.
That's so interesting because
they're wrapped up in each other.
They're both.
It's like they talk a
my
lot.
My true self. You know, they're both expressed in the same way as my true self.
Yeah, that's true. It's aligned.
That's very interesting.
It's cool, right?
I'm gonna let my ego just fly now.
No, let your ego fly.
I am God.
You're the god of war.
Yeah.
I want to talk about now that we're talking about your ascendant, I would also like to talk about the descendant.
I was wondering when you were going to get there because I'm curious what that means.
It's one of the most interesting things.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Just see if I'm... So if ascendant is the way like my clothes, the way I express myself, is it the way the way I hide from the world? Is that would
it's your shadow.
Yeah. Okay. So one is what I show to the world, and the other makes sense. It's what's being hidden.
Yes.
By what
And it's also what you repress within yourself as well, because this. Okay, so I just want to show you real quick on this chart how houses. So the first house and the seventh house are directly across each other from the zodiac wheel, and they're the same size. So not only do the first house and the seventh house, so the first house, the Aries, is concerned with the development of the ego. It's the me house. The seventh house, ruled by Libra, the scales, is the relationship house. All relationships.
Oh, that makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Me and them.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. And they just like face each other, and therefore they always have opposite signs. And opposite signs create tension between each other. Yeah. So your descendant will always be... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The negative, I guess, the opposite, the shadow of your ascendant. So that was when I first started thinking about how, you were probably a really good candidate for shadow work because, like, you have a stacked first house. You also have a... Let me see. You don't have anything in your seventh house actually. But anyways, so the way that the descendant works is that it's funny because of the polarity of these houses, it's very relationship oriented. So the way that you work through these issues and become more whole, which is working on your shadow, is by you looking into a mirror via your relationship with others. Because a lot of times, like, the people that are closest to you are the only ones that can say, well, yeah, he's like this. He's like his descendant. Of course he is. And it's everything that you dislike within a lot of other people. And so so you're Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the higher mind. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, learning how to process information, is the lower mind. It doesn't mean that it's not as intelligent and it's not as base, but it's more concerned with details and getting things done. Sagittarius is, let me just think about philosophy all day long and someone else will take care of the details. You know what I mean? And so, but Gemini, the shadow side, like the badly aspected Geminian personality can be like gossipy and catty and like, Mercury,
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They can be super flaky and
I definitely can be very flaky. I definitely have found myself in situations with gossip, and I don't feel like I have a good relationship with gossip because it seems all or nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I very much repress it. I very much, I have a attitude where I feel like I'm in a gossiping situation.
Yeah.
I'm very much, I can feel myself go like, stop it.
Do you know what Barbara Walters once said?
What?
She said that, show me somebody who never gossips, and I'll show you somebody that is not interested in people.
That's very interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Sometimes you just got to talk about what's going on, what you see in other people.
I never feel good when I do that.
I don't either.
I never ever feel good.
I don't either.
I always feel awful, even if I know I'm being helpful.
Mm-hmm. Or even if you're right.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, this person is being a bitch and is being catty, but it doesn't put forth any sort of good energy to like really lean
Yes.
into that aspect of it.
Yes.
Just like
I
forget it.
I have done that for sure.
Yeah, but and
Said
that's
things that didn't need to be said.
yeah, and that's yes, yeah, story of my life. But also that thing is something that you don't like in yourself, and therefore when you see it in somebody else, you really don't like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? However, because opposites attract, a lot of times you draw these types of people into your life, especially with your romantic relationships. And through those, will you eventually reconcile and get over it? You know what I mean? It's not saying lean into your descendant.
No, it says incorporate it.
Incorporate its good parts and deal with the bad parts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like use the Gemini attention to detail to like get your Sagittarius ideas like, out there if you want. But just kind of look at yourself and why, and it's just funny because you're just going to keep attracting people like that into your life of all kinds of relationships. You know what I mean? But like strong relationships, friendships, romantic relationships. But once you work through that, it'll get better, I guess is the only way to put it.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So okay. Who is Gemini, just out of curiosity?
I have a lot of Gemini friends that you don't know.
I mean, like in the stories.
In the stories. Gemini is Hermes, messenger god, the trickster god. Gemini is a trickster god.
Gemini is Mercury?
Mercury rules Gemini, yeah.
Mercury rules Gemini.
Yeah, Gemini in and of itself, it's just the twins. Two-faced.
Okay. So if that's my okay. I get it.
You got it?
It's the improper use of the verb. Like the improper use of your voice. It doesn't have to be. I mean, because it's my descendant sign.
Mm-hmm.
It's the shadow sign.
Mm-hmm.
It's the part of me I don't want to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm. But you have to.
But I have to.
Yeah.
Is the improper. I think maybe some part of me knows that,
Mm-hmm.
and is why I'm afraid to express things. You know what I mean?
You mean
It's like an overcompensation. It's
Okay.
like it's like stifling it,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
instead of using it to my advantage.
Mm-hmm. You should just start like some kind of like gossipy Pluto in the 11th house, like power play situation. I'd vote for you. Because you're benevolent. You'll just make everything better.
If you say so.
You do have a lot of dark elements here, though.
Yeah, I want to hear about the
All
anger,
right.
too.
All right.
Did we do all the signs?
No, this was a real roundabout way. We did. Oh, you know what I really want to do is actually your Mars in Taurus.
I was going to say, we didn't do Mars in Taurus. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's
We also didn't do Jupiter or Saturn.
Right.
So let's do. You want to do Mars because I think that's.
No, I want to do Mars.
I think that's interesting.
It's important.
Taurus is a bull, right?
Yes. Taurus is a bull. Taurus is a sign that also has a lot of anger issues. Yeah. Have you ever seen a Taurus get like really, really, really mad? It's terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah, it's real scary because it takes forever to get there, but then you're just like, oh my god.
Yes, I've dated Taurus.
Oh, okay. My sister is a Taurus.
I've never seen Kiki get really mad.
It's terrifying.
But I can believe that if you push her to the point, because she's so resistant to it.
You got to get her to the point.
But
Once you do, you're like, bye.
I feel like if you did, you will regret it.
Yeah. I've never dated a Taurus, I don't think.
I have. They get really mad. Like they don't get mad and then they get really mad.
They're into possessions. They often can treat people like objects that they love.
I feel that.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Possess. Yeah.
What am I looking for? Mars bar. All right. So, Mars. This is my first sentence for this. And this brings us to another incredibly interesting part of your chart. Your Mars and Taurus in the 6th house. So, yeah. So, I was like, that was one of the things where I was like, yoink, and picked it right up because I was like, everything in your chart wants to go to Taurus. And, you're not in Taurus, but your Mars, which is where the majority of your energy goes to is hanging out in Taurus, and it's just like, Mars, I want to this is where I am, and why aren't you guys here too?
Is it Aries Mars?
Yeah, exactly.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's good. I was like, I got this.
I have so much in Aries.
Yes,
in Mars.
Exactly, but
Mars expresses itself as where I want to go.
Yes, because the universe is helping you. It put your energy where you need to go.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Mars is the thing that would push something to the next.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
It's awesome. I think I like even did like one of these things whenever
Yeah,
I was like,
you
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of alluded to this to me.
Yeah. Oh
that-
my god, I had such a hard time not telling you
No,
about
no,
it.
you're good because I found it very. I was wondering how that explanation came out, and now I get it.
Yeah. So in addition, like, so Mars represents like that kind of energy, but it also is like your libido. it it is how you project yourself and your desires and your will onto the world. It is the expression of your will. It's your Mars. So your Mars is in Taurus. And Taurus is the great pastoral sign. It's just Taurus wants to be out in the field, hanging out, eating cheese, and like just having sex all day. You know what I mean? That's what Taurus wants to do. And it's like a sensual, it's a decadent sign, but it's also one that values like creating stability. That's why it's the first Earth sign. So it's like just figuring out like how to use the Earth, and it's very like
Which Greek god is Taurus?
Taurus. Is there a bull? Is there a bull Taurus god or Greek god?
It's easy to just use the bull. That's what I think of when I think
Yeah.
of Taurus as a bull.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Greek god that rules Taurus is Venus. So
Oh.
Venus, Aphrodite, but in this case,
That makes sense.
Venus imparts her quality of values.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And,
Mhm.
and Taurus like is really like into what they value. It just has to like this is one of the things too where you're like that person's not a Taurus. So I'm like, yeah, but are they really into what they value? Do you know what I
That's
mean?
why it's a bull, because it's like stubborn.
Super stubborn.
It's
Super
if you're
stubborn.
very into what you value, then you're not gonna budge on those
Right.
things.
And good luck if you have your Mars in Taurus. Good luck on getting somebody to change their mind or to do something that you don't want to do.
It's very difficult.
And then like you get mad.
I do get mad.
Yeah.
I have to feel like I chose it.
Oh, so you gotta trick you. I get it.
You have to use my empathy.
No, you have to logic with you on a real level and get you to see your point of view.
Yeah, that's
you know,
true.
you just have to be real with you.
Like, here's an example. If I don't want to do something, but I feel like I should,
I see what you're saying.
then I have to convince myself. See, that's where the anger can come in, or has come in the past, where I feel as though it's not fair. I'm like blaming somebody else for my choice, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But instead, my way of handling that has been to say, no, I chose this. You know, this
you
is
chose this person and this person wants to do this.
yes. And this part of that is this.
Yes.
It's my choice. It's no one's fault.
Yeah.
It's not anything to be mad about.
Right.
It's just my choice.
Right.
It's very ego, you know, it's very much about me.
It is. And that's the tough thing about an Aries too. It's because like, especially if you're dating one, I don't think I ever have, but like I got a kid and I just know like a lot of Aries people and I've seen the plights of the people I date. It's rough. You just kind of you have to just like look at them in the eyes and say like you have to do these things for the people you love. Just because you don't want to do it doesn't mean that it's unfair to you. I'm not making you do. You know what I mean? Like it's you just have to like slap them in the face with it sometimes. And it sucks, but like
For me, it's much easier to handle if I feel like I chose it and I get the consequences of that choice.
okay.
You know, if I don't see, because I've actually had to say to girlfriends since figuring this out, like if a girlfriend apologizes for like anything that didn't go well for me, you know, or like something I did that I didn't really want to do,
Oh, right,
I'll be like, don't apologize for
Right.
that. You didn't make me do that.
Right.
I chose to do that.
Right.
I don't like to, and I don't like to endorse that side of me that would like to blame you for this.
Yeah, it's just though, however, you know, I don't know if this is Aries, but I think it's also just like you in general where, you know, you're still going to project like you're going to get antsy and you're going to like the other person's going to feel it. They're going to feel your misery even though you're like trying to power through it, and it's just like it's a, you know, empathic way of being like, I'm sorry, you know. It's just trying to alleviate the situation, and you know that is what
Yeah,
and then but that's on the part of your partner to say this is who he is too, and I just have to like let it go.
Yes.
You know?
I also was like, I understand you're saying sorry because I feel this way.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
sorry that I did this to you.
Right.
They're very different things.
Right.
If I feel like you're saying sorry I did this to you, I don't like it because it makes me like the shadow part of my anger
Yeah.
be like, this is a way out.
Right.
You know, I can blame you for this.
Ugh.
You know, that's
Yeah,
in
yeah,
there. I've done that
yeah.
in my past, but
Yeah,
but
I think that's like a early 20s relationship kind of
yes,
bullshit
it
thing.
is.
Yeah.
It is. Part of that is just growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't it's a lot easier for me to feel like I've chosen my consequences.
Yeah. But it's a control thing.
It is. It is.
Mm-hmm. But it's also good though. It's using the qualities of control that you have within yourself for good, I feel.
I feel like that too.
You
I
know?
feel like maybe sometimes I don't know. I do feel like if it's like very obviously you did this to me, then I'm fine with being like, that's not okay.
Right.
You can't do that.
Right.
You know?
Because that's the truth.
Right. But I usually have to take like a day to figure out how to say it because I've learned that if I say it when I'm feeling it, I will not say it well and it will hurt someone very badly and I'll feel bad.
Yeah.
So instead, it's like take a day, think about it, figure out what you really want to say, figure out what you really think about this, and then communicate it honestly. And then I feel okay.
Do you have a tendency, like when you're not mad anymore, like not like the full force of madness, do you just kind of be like, all right, well, I'm over this now, like moving on? But then like it'll still come up probably eventually. But the
Depends.
Okay, depends on.
I'm not going to give the full example, but let's just say I was genuinely in the right, and I had every right to be angry about something. Just believe me for this.
Okay,
case.
I believe you.
I took literally a whole day to think about why would someone do this? Why would someone behave this way? And I came to understand it in a way that was like, I'm not excusing it, but at least I understand where that came from.
Okay.
And then I sat this person down and I said, look, I get it. I understand all of these things. You can't do that. You know? And it's like, if I feel like you heard me, and even if you make the mistake again, if I know you heard me the first time and you're working and you felt bad, you know, I want you to feel bad.
Yeah.
A little bit. If you don't feel bad, I don't believe you'll do anything about it.
Right.
But and then I pretty much let it go unless it happens like the exact same way over and over and over again. Then it's like, I empathize, but you're not progressing enough in this area, and I can't deal with it.
Right.
Versus, like, well, you're working on it, you know, and it's fine. You made a mistake again. Well, let's move forward.
I always have a soft spot. Like the people that I like to keep around me, like no one's perfect, and I have a lot of complicated friends. And if you're just like walking uphill for the rest of your life, just a little bit, then that's all really you can do. You just work on it. Just work on your shit, you know.
Yes, exactly.
But if you don't, then I can't offer anybody my real energy.
I'm not
anything real.
Yeah, I'm not going to enable your stagnation.
Yeah, and I'm not going to let it drag me down.
Right.
You know, because
you can do that. It's your choice.
Yeah.
But that's exactly it. Like if I feel like you heard me, you felt bad, and you are trying.
There's nothing worse than like an empty apology.
Yes. Ugh. Or like the worst was actually the reaction in that situation was not. It was a sort of coy acknowledgement without saying it. It was a coy acknowledgement that you are correct, but I'm not going to apologize out loud. And then I realized pretty quickly afterwards, like you're never going to, at least not in the state you're in right now, and I can't change that.
Right.
So this is not working.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's very evolved of you. Honestly, that's like the right way to do things.
Yeah, but it's not like that's something that.
This is your like.
This is like
your storytelling of it, like now.
Well, no. This I would say is pretty honest, but it's after 1,000 of reacting the wrong way. You know.
I'm proud of you. Genuinely.
Yeah, I don't feel like I started behaving correctly until my 30s.
Dude, everybody, especially guys, are garbage people in their 20s. I've decided.
Hey, we don't grow up. I've said to many women, like there are no men younger than 27. Well, there are some. There are some.
Yeah, that had to grow up quickly.
But yes, there are some, but it is the exception, not the rule.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with you.
And that's no criticism. I know a lot of guys who are under 27 who are great people.
Yeah, no, that doesn't mean that they're not great people.
No, it's just like you're not a man yet. You're like a manling. You have all the destructive power of being a man, but you haven't.
You're still behind the wall.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
uh,
All right. So I do
um,
want to. I want to finish at least the
okay.
rest of the planets.
All right. Okay.
But I also want to ask
I
you.
need to talk about your nodes, though.
That's what is the because I wanted to ask about the. You said some things were in conflict.
Let's see. Sun conjunct Moon. All right. So your Sun is opposing your Pluto. In opposition, you have several oppositions actually. Your Sun. Okay. An opposition is when a planet, like two planets, are directly across from each other. They're just
Mm.
like looking at each other. Like one's just got like a sniper rifle, probably Pluto, aiming right at your Sun. But it's
Does that have to do with the Pluto being the 11th house?
it the just the opposition qualities of an opposition itself doesn't, but because your Pluto is in the 11th house,
What does that mean again?
and
Can
in
you refresh my
Scorpio,
memory?
communities, social things,
That's the
like
11th house?
yeah, not like self-expression, but the expression of a group of people, like living
Okay.
within a group. Um, and so yeah, everything like ties in together, but the opposition means that so like there's a conjunction, which is where the planets are like right next to each other, so they're like besties.
Mm.
A lot of the times their energies get too blended and like one fades, like your moon and your sun thing. A trine is another favorable aspect where the energies are very blended, that but a lot of times it can sort there it's so innate that the you just kind of like take your talents for granted. A sextile is like a trine, but it provides a little bit more tension so that like things actually get done with your talents. Um, a square is, in my opinion, one of the most tense aspects, and that causes tension, which causes you to make change within this like difficult aspect in your chart. It just is like tension spurs action. So I'm trying to tell you this because an opposition
Okay.
is different from these in a way, and it's like the word like it's an opposition, but the way that you have to deal with it is in your relationships to others. So you have to reconcile this opposition. Your sun is opposing your Pluto. The expression of yourself is being undermined by this strong Pluto that you have, this like need for power and control in certain ways, and like it indicates to where your darknesses lie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you may give it too much power. You may think it's cooler than it really is. I think that a lot of people are like overly in love with their own darkness. That's like a personal thought that I have, because my thoughts are personal.
No, that you're saying my truest expression is limited by my need for control.
Yes.
Yeah, that,
When you put it like
but
very, very succinctly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
definitely.
Yeah, exactly. And your need for, like, because this is a double Scorpio situation in which, part of you just really, really loves like emotional drama. You love like a messy love affair. I mean, you may not love it, but like you're drawn
No,
to
no,
it.
no. Younger me, definitely.
Yeah. And so
Even when I
go on.
like actively tried not to.
Yeah, because there's something about it that draws you towards it. And
That's another shadow that I hadn't dealt with properly, and I actually feel as though I'm dealing with it now
okay.
more properly
Right.
because I just noticed some things about myself. A lot of it was things I allowed myself to do
Yeah.
this past year,
hmm
and I started to see it, to really look at it and be like, oh,
Are you talking about like shadowy things or like
yes,
yeah.
things about drama,
Right.
like being drawn to it, and there's control. It's like when you are a stable person, there's a lot of control in being around people who are in drama because, well, it allows you to feel more in control because you're seeing people out of control.
But also, you have so much Aries. You want to be near the fire a lot of the
That's
time.
yes.
You know what I mean? But you have all these restrictions on your Aries, the expression of your Aries. So of course you're going to be drawn to something that at least gets you close to the heat.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it. That's a
You
perfect
know?
way to put it. It's interesting too because that whole need for control being in the way of my true self, it fits with the Neptune thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I do have this undeniable draw to creativity. Look at the
Yeah.
people I hang out
Right.
with, right?
Right.
I can't help myself, but
Not only though, but
internally, I do control gets in the way. Like this need for control gets in the way of expressing my creativity in any way that's
Right.
meaningful.
Right. No, I mean, and that sucks. It really sucks. It does. Especially because it's everything that goes on in your first house is always really important. And so creativity is very important to you. And also that's where your sun and your moon are too, like in the fifth house. And, you know, it's just like a fireball of, you know, what you need. It's like literally the blueprint of what's going to make you happy and what you need to work on.
It also speaks to a deep I think I expressed this to you once,
What?
that one of this deep fear I have of what I could do.
Right.
Like
if you let
to
yourself.
use the fire analogy, it's
Right.
like, what if it's a wildfire?
Oh, I remember this.
You know, like I don't want that to happen. I don't want it to be. I'm afraid of it being the cause of something too big or too out of control. You know, because fire has an uncontrollable element to it.
Yes.
You can't, if you try to control fire too much, it gets snuffed out.
Right.
So I think I don't have a good balance of respect for that with, well, no, I don't have a good relationship with respect for that. I don't have a balance of keeping it in control while letting it do its thing.
Well, another thing too that I didn't talk about with Uranus is that it's so fucking stupid. Is that Uranus really hates having constrictions on its freedom.
Oh yeah,
and that's in your first house.
That's me.
Yeah.
I really hate constrictions on my freedom.
Yeah, so that's also like an essential part of you, and you need the freedom in order to like do what you got to do. You just need it.
But the constraint is self-imposed.
Exactly.
And there's no way. Wow.
Yeah. And where's your Saturn? Your Saturn's in the 12th house. All right. So now I really want to get you think on that.
That hit me in a real way.
Do you want to talk about it?
No, I think I have to process it.
All right. Okay.
But I think that's something that's very much needs my attention.
And I think that what I'm going to talk about now is going to tie in with it a little bit. So,
what is Saturn? What are they?
Saturn.
We talked about this. Saturn is time.
Yeah, Saturn is restricting something while Jupiter expands. Saturn is sort of like,
okay.
They call it the great malefic of the zodiac, which sounds so dramatic. I love it.
Does Saturn have a god?
Yeah. Saturn is Kronos. He was a Titan.
Okay. Very on the nose.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Saturn is about rules, about restriction, about like quarreling in like the things that, you know, can get too out of hand in a lot. It's about life lessons, and wherever Saturn is in your chart is where you're going to have to like learn some lessons. So you have it in the 12th house.
What is that line?
Okay, the 12th house is super interesting because the 12th house is the one that is, when you're looking at the sky, it's like just beyond the horizon. So it's the unseen house, and it governs everything that is hidden. It governs secrets. It's ruled by Neptune. It's ruled by Neptune, right?
Okay.
So in it, transformations and endings, it's the last section of the karmic wheel that the zodiac represents. So it's when you leave this earth. It's like the end. So supposedly, like once you reach, you know, that, you know, I don't know, like wherever like your soul will evolve, like who knows, that's a whole other conversation. But that's just what the 12th house represents. But because of that, it also like folded into that realm are like unwanted institutionalization, like prisons, mental asylums, hospitals, things like that, things that you're in that you don't want to be in. It just rules those things physically, just kind of like how Mars rules physical weaponry. This is what the 12th house is, and because of that, it's because it rules everything you have to shed in order to be free.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? So you have your south node is in the 12th house. That's where your Saturn is. And we just like, for the sake of keeping this, you know, like easily digestible, this is where your life lessons are kind of like focused right now. And so the nodes of the moon are really interesting. They're not a planet. They're just like the poles of the moon and where they land, you know, in your chart. And your north node is supposedly your life's purpose and your soul's mission. It's what, you know, you're here to do. It's what you got to get to. And the south node is because it's, you know, everything is the opposite and you always got to work with the opposite here, is, so you got north node Taurus in the 6th house, south node Scorpio in the 12th house.
That's so funny.
Exactly, because you got to get to Taurus.
That's so funny. Okay. And
that's
south node is Scorpio
in the 12th house. So the south node is fascinating because that's supposedly where you hold the emotional hangover of your past karma.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? It's the shit you can't shake off, but you don't know why. It's the stuff that's like so entrenched within your soul because you had to go through those lessons over and over and over again and you still haven't shaken them. But you may not,
And that's
you
in
know?
Saturn.
Yeah. Well, that's where your Saturn is. Your south node is in Scorpio.
Myself.
In the sign of Scorpio, but also your Saturn is with your that node in the same house, hanging out.
Okay.
So yeah, so you don't. The Saturn is affecting this, but it's in Scorpio.
So, okay.
I know this is getting confusing.
No,
There's
it's
a lot.
I'm trying to. So Saturn is my relationship with time, or the things preventing me from freedom,
Yeah, it's just
and
restrictions.
and that happens to be. Is that true for everybody? Is your south node always in Saturn?
No, it's not.
Because that just feels like it makes sense.
Yeah.
The things that I can't let go of
Right.
are the things preventing me
Right.
from moving forward.
Right.
And it's weird that it's over the horizon.
You know, right. But I kind of think that, like, I wrote about it a little bit in this thing, but because the 12th house is concerned with all those kinds of institutions that, people do not go into willingly, I have a feeling this could be completely wackadoodly sounding, but I think that like the karma that you can't shake off and what is probably causing a lot of your self-imposed restrictions is like, I think that you were, indoctrinated so heavily with something that's stopping you and you just can't shake off the emotional hangover or like just the soul memory of those things. And everything that you need to do in order to get to where you got to go is, you got to like shake it off. And that's, indicative of your life, your soul's work, which is separate from, I guess.
That's interesting. Why do you say indoctrinated?
There was like certain other elements of your chart just because of the institutionalization aspect of it. And also because in order to get through it, like a lot of other aspects point to using, your Jupiter sign. And Jupiter is, forward thinking in a different way than Uranus. It's more like expansive thinking, like, philosophizing and, expanding your mind. And that's what made me think it was some kind of like constriction on your mind.
I mean, there's a part that rings true to me just because I'm so averse to the idea that anybody knows anything. Do you know, like...
Right. No, totally.
I try to have a good relationship. Like, I'm averse to anyone who thinks they have an answer.
Yeah.
And if that were true, that sounds like I would have believed I had an answer or I knew the answer.
No.
If I was indoctrinated, that would be, if I was indoctrinated into some way of thinking or seeing the world, that would probably mean, to me, my interpretation of that is I would feel like I knew the answer. It's like the old really religious people,
right,
who like think they know,
right,
like I know how I'm going to be saved. I know I don't find that to be very,
but
but
aren't there things that like you just certain feelings, certain like you're too scared to go certain places. You know what I mean? It's like when I use the term emotional hangover, I meant just like the feelings that they were there when you were born. They're just part of you.
Interesting.
Stuff that kind of stuff is really hard to shake off.
That's hard for me to even.
And it's not even really something you can access especially because it's 12th house stuff.
The 12th house.
See, now you're learning.
Yeah.
So but the way
That's so interesting.
The way to deal with that is to like lean into your North Node stuff, which is in Taurus. So there's also that.
So lean into my stubbornness.
Yeah. But your Taurus is also in the 6th house, which is like the house of like everyday routines and like work and health. Vitamins.
That is so true. Yeah. Because when it's actually both a blessing and a curse, because when I find a new routine that's working for me,
you like it.
I love it, but it doesn't last.
Why? You get bored.
I get bored.
Yeah.
The creative aspect of me is not satisfied.
Oh.
And I need to create a new routine, which always feels like a death. Like,
can you give me an example of a routine? So like an eating routine, like an
Sure,
exercising
eating,
routine.
exercise, that's great. Exercise is great. Those are both great because I was very, very, very overweight when I was younger.
Oh, you're a former fatty.
Yeah.
Love it. It's
And
my favorite people.
right.
Totally.
So I had a routine
Yeah.
that worked for me.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of anger when I figured out that routine wasn't working anymore.
Oh.
And,
yeah.
it's like, but I did all that work.
Yeah.
Why doesn't that last forever?
Right.
And then, but I've realized that in a way there's a gift there because it plateaus.
Yes.
Even though the routine's kind of working.
Yeah.
The real thing is the new, like when the new routine really takes hold, that's like the best part. That's that is.
Your Mars is in the 6th house. This is where you're being very passionate about this.
Yeah, it feels so good.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's funny because actually some people make comments that do bother me sometimes when they say like, you're always doing something.
Yeah.
And it's like, now I'm like, yeah, I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
yes, doing nothing, you boring person.
Yeah. Like I'll try out some new diet or like, I'll try out some new, just because why not?
No, totally. It's like biohacking.
Right. Right. I mean, I live my life.
Yeah.
Why not try it?
Yeah.
It's the same.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Like when I started the boxing thing.
Yeah. I didn't know you boxed. Yeah.
I don't do it as much. I don't go to the boxing gym anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But when it started, it was like, this is great.
Yeah.
This feels amazing. It's a new routine that's strengthening me in a way.
Right.
There's
maybe
a
a lot of
creative
your Aries.
aspect.
There's an Aries part of you that gets bored after a while too.
Yes. The creation of a routine is like the sweet spot.
Really?
Because it's like I am being creative in a way that is practical.
Right.
And has like ritual to it and has a sort of.
And it's beneficial.
Yes. It satisfies so much.
But it's also selfish in a way because it's making you better.
Yes, it's very selfish.
Yeah.
I have to be selfish. And
oh,
weirdly,
yeah.
I think that I struggle with that in weird ways. When I notice I'm feeling like sometimes it's hard for me to do things that when I'm doing them, it's not hard. It's hard for me to come to terms with the fact that this is going to be a selfish thing. You're going to do this for yourself. Your other relationships might suffer because of it, but you have to do this. That kind of thing. But I feel better when I do it.
Oh, absolutely. You have to fill your glass before pouring it out again, kind of a thing. What's funny is that like that's such a like quality. Like I'm actually, believe it or not, like an introvert. You know what I mean? And
technically, so am I.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it seems like you're a social introvert. So
yes,
I think it can be hard because you're like, I just need to be alone and like not and only like I have to deal with these things because I personally process things slowly. Like I'll just kind of like barrel through things and then like 2 weeks later I'm like, all right, I'm mad, or I'm sad or like whatever. And
that's interesting. I have almost the polar opposite.
Really?
Of that.
Well, when that happens, I have to just like go deal with it. Nobody lets me.
I have this initial strong reaction that I almost work to suppress or to dull down because I'm afraid of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I think there's some healthiness in there.
Right. No, absolutely.
Little healthy to not be like just saying everything that comes to your mind.
Hulk smash.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I think astrology is therapy when used in this way. And that's what I like about it.
I totally agree. So the North Node is what you should lean into. The fact that my South Node, so the South Node is the thing that holds you back.
Yeah,
it's and what you're saying karma. Is because it's in the 12th house, it's inaccessible to me, even though it's having an effect on me.
Did I say that? I mean, I don't think I said that, but I think you're right.
Okay, maybe let's say it's out of sight. I can't see it.
It's hidden. It's the things that you repress.
Right, which is in a way a gift. It could be a gift.
It could be a gift.
It could be a curse because I don't know. I won't know objectively when it's affecting me.
Well, the other thing you have to think about is that because the wheel is set up in such a way that most of the issues you have can be dealt with by looking at the opposite. So if you think about it like this, then nothing is really, you're never unable to fix, quote unquote, anything that's on your chart because like you've been given the opposite. You've been given need to do to deal with it.
Yes.
So everything is going to be fine, kind of thing. You know, it's like,
That's interesting.
this issue has this flavor, but hello, like we gave you the right like antidote. You know.
So is it? I'm trying to figure out the connection. So I'm having trouble understanding the Saturn thing, Chronos.
Mm-hmm. I think that instead of like leaning into the time aspect of Chronos, I think you should just think more that it's the planet of restrictions. Because like restrictions are bad and they can be good when they're restricting something that can, you know.
And my 12th house is in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's why I feel like this is why like this chart is such a prime candidate for a shadow work. And I just think you're really almost ready to get to that Taurus. But it's just giving you all these gifts in order to combat that.
I also think, and I think you said this to me, is my desire to be a Taurus is kind of a problem.
Yeah, you have to just let yourself be yourself.
Yes.
Repression, not a believer. You know, I'm just not. I'm just really not.
I don't believe in it either. I think there's a healthy amount of repression. Like, what I mean by that is like not the Hermes thing, you know, like not saying things that don't need to be said.
Right.
There are urges I feel like it might be best to suppress. As a man, I feel like I have to say that.
I think that every trait, if you just take like the just purest expression of it, is like a seed, and it can be expressed in this way and it can be expressed in that way. You know what I mean? Like the seed of it isn't inherently bad, but it can manifest in bad ways and good ways.
That's shadow work.
Yeah, like for example, like the Leo thing. I talked earlier about how like they are always annoying and saying blah blah blah. But the reason I feel is why like Leo they need that kind of attention, especially in close relationships, because like they need the space to just blast that person with how like hard they can feel. I
have a question.
Sure.
Do you think that if you've properly, so let's say I use the example of suppressing things you shouldn't say. If you did shadow work on there and you were very successful, it wouldn't feel like you were suppressing.
Right.
It would feel like you would just know this isn't the way that this. Yes. It's like how I am with anger now.
Exactly.
It's like
yeah,
I don't
perfect.
feel like I'm suppressing anger. I feel like I'm using it properly.
Exactly.
Got it.
Oh, it's perfect. You already did it instinctively.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Did you get to that point through philosophy?
I don't know. I think I don't know.
Might have helped.
It might have.
Yeah.
I think probably. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm using deductive reasoning probably. But so the conclusion of that is, if you feel like even if you're right to suppress something, even if you feel conflict, that's a good signifier that this is an area that needs work.
Yeah.
This is an area that you've not properly integrated.
Totally.
Okay. That's hard to remember, but probably a good thing. To write down.
Well, I mean, like it really correlates to shadow work though, because you're like, oh, I'm having a negative reaction to something somebody did. What about this?
This is why journaling works so well.
Oh God, yeah.
Or like
no, totally.
CBT, cognitive therapy, behavioral therapy, same thing. It's basically just
training.
Yeah, remember you had this feeling, and then accept the fact that it would be better if you didn't have that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything else in here that like just jumping out at you that you need to know?
A lot of it is jumping out at me, but I want to finish the planets just because I'm a completionist. But you should see how I play video games. It's terrifying. All right, so I think we did Mars. We didn't do Mars. Jupiter.
Your Jupiter. Oh, okay, cool. So
Aquarius.
Yeah, Aquarius is the sign it's the water bearer, and it is the water bearer because it just sort of like fills its water glass of knowledge and goes around and distributes it to the rest of humanity.
I associate Aquarius with artists.
I can see that. I have Aquarius is my opposite sign, and I often have difficulties with certain Aquarius.
What god is Jupiter?
Jupiter is Zeus, actually.
Jupiter is Zeus.
Yeah, I couldn't remember that earlier, but Jupiter is Zeus. Zeus, the king.
Well, that makes sense. It's the biggest planet.
Yeah.
And then what about Aquarius?
Aquarius is Uranus.
Oh, there's something there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because also, okay, so it's in the third house.
I was just about to ask, what is the third house?
Excuse me. The third house is Like kind of like your 11th house, but it is also it's a social house. It's the one that's ruled by Mercury and Gemini, and how you like learn and communicate and like learn how to socialize. So while the 11th house deals more with just like really like organized groups, um, I think the third house also brings your social life into play, and because your Jupiter is in there, it's going to expand everything that happens there and bless you and give you good luck within that department. Your communication with other people, and
Mm.
how in Aquarius, the has the Uranus effect of like the progressive thought that we had talked about earlier, and like the just you know flashes of lightning that like move the human race further, like the crazy ideas that come out of nowhere. So you're gonna have blessings in that department, and they're probably going to come within like in the form of third house matters.
Sorry.
What? No, what are
And
you laughing at?
there's a quote I really want to read to you
Read it.
from Nietzsche. I'd have to take my phone out to
Go for
find
it.
it. But just the flash of lightning. There's a reason I wrote down this quote.
Okay.
A philosopher. That is a man who constantly experiences, sees, hears, suspects, hopes, and dreams extraordinary things, who is struck by his own thoughts as if they came from the outside, from above and below, as a species of events and lightning flashes peculiar to him, who is perhaps himself a storm pregnant with new lightnings, a portentous man, around whom there is always rumbling and mumbling and gaping and something uncanny going on, a philosopher, alas, a being who often runs away from himself, is often afraid of himself, but whose curiosity always make him come to himself again.
Wow, that's good.
Friedrich Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil, Part 9, number 292. See, I have to be that specific.
You just couldn't stop. You just had to keep
No,
going.
well, now I can find it.
That's really interesting. It's also really beautiful.
It is.
You
I
know what I
like
mean?
I love the way he writes.
Yeah.
It's that just jumped off the page at me when I read that.
Yeah.
Do you think that quote I just read resonates with a lot of what you have thought like in your
About like the
Yes.
Uranus Aquarius thing, or just about your chart in
just
particular?
my chart as a whole, and if so, where?
Well, I do, because there's a lot of like action happening and things that indicate philosophy and personal growth and forward thinking and innovative ideas. There was a very beautiful artistic quote, and you definitely have some connections with all of your sun moon placements, and that Neptune in your first house, you connect to an expression of truth with the guise of beauty.
I was gonna say the
You know what I mean?
beauty is important to me,
Yeah.
and not in the way that I think most people think of the word. I think people hear the word beauty and think of vanity.
Mm.
You know,
No, you have your own definitions of beauty, is what you mean, maybe.
maybe or like just some phrases are just beautiful. Some words are beautiful. Some people are beautiful. Some buildings are beautiful, and I find that explanations that are the most correct tend to be very beautiful. That
Do you think it's like a chicken or the egg situation? Maybe the truth makes it beautiful to you.
that could be.
Mm.
I think that the truth is beautiful.
I agree.
And so the closest things to this is why I think one of the reasons I'm drawn to creatives is I think there are a lot of truths
Mhm.
that can't be expressed except
Illogical.
poetically, in a way that is not meant to be read scientifically or to be understood like
It just won't work the same way.
no,
It
right.
won't affect people the same way. 'Cause
Exactly.
you have to involve emotions.
Yes. Part of poetry is the way a large part of poetry is the impact it has on the
Mhm.
reader.
That's very true. Poetry is hard for me.
That's hard for me too.
Yeah. I like laugh a lot. But then like when something is really, really good, I'm just like, okay.
Same.
Like,
Mhm.
all right.
It's the same with music. I like music that is poetic.
Yeah.
Music adds the layer of sound,
Yeah.
like waves. What?
Music adds the sound.
It does. It like
No, I
takes
know.
poetry, but then it adds sound to it.
It adds another sense to
Yeah.
it. And have you ever heard of what are those? Solfeggio frequencies?
No.
I don't know if that's how you say it, but So going on the like super new age, but probably true based on my personal experience theory that everything has a vibration.
Hmm.
Certain tones of sound, like certain musical like tones have their own vibration, and then whatever vibration that is like aligns to like a certain emotion, and that's what Gregorian chants did.
This is so funny.
Have you heard of this?
No, but
But then like, well, music, yes, it affects your emotions based on like all the things that you normally think about, but it literally can change. It adds a physical change to your environment that changes something if you believe that.
when someone says something that gets to me, I
Mm,
use the word resonates
mm,
because it describes most correctly what I'm trying to express,
yeah,
which is that the vibrations you
yeah.
just made with your
Mm-hmm.
vocal cords is now
Reverberating
it's
through you. Yeah.
reverberating in me in a way that conveys more than just the waves. Do you know,
No, yeah, yeah, yeah.
like somehow you took a non-physical thing, which is an idea or a thought, embedded it in waves of sound that that penetrated into my
Yeah,
ear and got
yeah.
my eardrum to, I'm getting it all sciencey right now,
No,
but
no,
like,
but
and then got into me as a thought,
yeah,
and now we are both on the same wavelength. It's like resonating, like when you hit a tuning fork
right,
and you put it near another tuning fork and
right,
it starts going.
right. It took different routes
Yeah.
and therefore affected like a more united portion of you,
Yes.
perhaps.
Yes.
You know, it's also just like there's only so many ways you can explain something logically. You know what I mean? There's
Dude.
endless ways to express a very specific kind of like heartache. For example, with 1,000 different songs, you still get the same like, all right, I get this. You're
Yeah.
feeling it this way, you're feeling it that way, but we're all feeling the same thing.
That's why I like being around musicians
Yeah,
and stuff so much.
yeah.
That's my limiting aspect, because when I try to be creative in that way, I logic it. I get too logical.
I can see how that would inhibit you, but also at the same time, maybe it would help you to sort of like just admit to yourself that the logical part of you is part of how you create. And maybe that's your unique
Hmm.
self expression. And maybe that'll make the kind of art that you need to be making.
That's interesting.
You know
Lean
what I
into it
mean?
is what
Yeah. Art is self expression. What's yourself? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's not this person or that person that you admire
Hmm.
or idealize. What are you? Why are you not as good as that? Like, I don't know. My favorite, like, pumping myself up phrase is, if these assholes can do it, is so can you. If these idiots can do it, so can you. But I'm not saying like all my friends are idiots, but mostly just, they like think about how somebody would view you.
Mm.
You know, you
Yeah.
just got to look at yourself through somebody that like loves you and see how they see you, and then maybe you'll, unleash your creativity a little bit more. But however,
great
since you
advice.
like plans, maybe you should just make a plan on how to unleash your creativity.
Well, the thing is, I don't know if I like plans.
Ooh,
I like routines.
what's the difference?
Um, Routines are created, they come about without a plan. You know what I mean?
You can make a plan for a routine. Oh, I see what you're saying though. Like inherently.
For me, a routine comes together by doing things.
Oh,
And then it becomes a plan, but it wasn't planned.
I understand.
Actually, here's a great example. When I go somewhere, I
Mhm.
need at least once a year, like absolute
Mhm.
minimum, to have at least one day where I don't have a plan. Because I need to go somewhere without an idea of what I'm going to do or anything like that. But I've learned I have to plan for that.
I was just like, that's
You
what
know,
I'm biting my tongue.
yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do plan, but actually the way
That's such an
Kiki
awesome way that you're harnessing your Saturn energy. You
is
know
it?
what I mean? Like you're not restricting, you're like taking the restrictions but also making them work for you, like to achieve
Yes.
your end goals.
Yes, which it took a long time.
Yeah.
Like, because I would get frustrated that things weren't happening.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, you haven't done.
That's super.
Yeah. So,
Kiki.
Kiki, when she was telling me about Greece,
Oh yeah.
like that seems like a very unplanned place. It seems like a place that is like they don't like planning. They like.
Can I just tell you? I don't think you heard this because, unfortunately, you weren't at the wedding, but it was part of my speech, my maid of honor speech, and I relayed just a little story that's one of my favorite stories about Katie, because Katie's like super like type A. Katie is my sister's wife, and my sister is Kiki, and she is like not type A. She's like
It's
D+.
actually what makes them work so well.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They really balance each other out. But so this was like the day that we were leaving, and it was like 5 in the morning. It was still blackout. I'm like so sad that we're leaving this idyllic little island, like dreading the trip ahead because it was like an arduous day. I literally thought I was going to die. Just anyways.
I think Katie told me the story, but I want you to finish it because it's a great story, and this is the
so
reason
good. It's so good, and because all right, and so I'm just like looking around this quiet island. Kate, like, well, first of all, we're waiting for Kiki, which is what I spend 30% of my life doing. Love you so much. But both of us just kind of like looked at each other. We're like, yeah, waiting for Kiki. It's fine. Looking around the island. And then she just takes this like a really, really deep sort of like just this like from her soul sigh and just goes, I'm so excited to return to a place where they understand a sense of urgency.
No, I didn't hear that. That's perfect.
It was so good. It was so good. You know?
So that what I heard was
that's why Greece is just it's so chill.
Yes, that's it. Like Kiki was like, "You'd love it," to me, and I agree.
Oh my god!
Because Katie was talking about how they needed to catch a plane that wasn't on the island, and they had to take a boat, and the guy wouldn't tell her when the boat leaves. He's like, in the morning, and she's like, when in the morning?
And the guy's like, whenever I want to go.
I need to be at an airplane at a certain time, and I was just laughing because I get that. I almost find it intoxicating,
right?
Because I would be like, well, if we don't catch if the boat doesn't get us there in time, we get another day.
Anything can happen.
We'll have to fly back another time. We'll have a whole nother day.
A whole other adventure.
Exactly.
Nothing like adventure doesn't happen unless you just kind of like let the rules slide a little bit.
Yes.
I'm a fan of adventure and mischief.
Yes, that's
so fun.
Last year, a friend of mine, like 10 days before, said, I'm going to Scotland and Ireland. I think you should come. Mm-hmm. And I went.
That's awesome.
And it was one of the best trips I've ever had in my life. Life-changing. And that's the kind of thing. It's sometimes I think there is that back to archetypes, the hero's journey. There is the call to adventure and the withdrawal from the hero doesn't heed the call immediately. They always recoil from it a little bit. They always like come up with a reason why they can't do it.
There's
Luke
fear
Skywalker is a great example of that, right? Like I gotta take care of the farm. This isn't for me. You know, a lot of people, I think myself included, get stuck there.
Yeah.
Where there's a call, you know it scares you. It's supposed to scare you a little bit. Like it should be a little scary. To be like, in 10 days I'm leaving the country. I don't have any plan. I don't have any idea where I'm gonna be. It's a little scary.
I don't think it would have the effect that it did on you if it wasn't that scary.
Right. But it's so great. It's such a great experience. And you come back. That's another thing. The return, it's the end. You come back a better, bigger person with the wisdom needed for the next adventure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That sounds fun as hell.
It is.
You should go to Greece.
I should go to Greece.
Yeah.
I'm going to Barcelona in April.
Thank you for telling me about that, and I was so jealous.
We might go to one other place.
Yeah, we should go to Portugal.
That would be good.
We should go to Portugal.
That would be good.
Yeah, have some dope ass seafood.
Oh, they do have good seafood.
Have you been?
No, well,
I'm kidding.
I've had Portuguese. Speaking of, do you want to go eat, or do you want?
Yes, I'm actually starving.
You're pretty hungry because that was a lot. I'm down to go forever, but
I know it was a lot. It was long. And
that was perfect. I'm gonna read this whole thing.
Oh yeah.
All right.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah.